Elon wants to change community notes because he's sick of being corrected. That's awesome. That's cool. That's fun. Yeah, Democrats are not doing much in terms of mounting a defense, a significant defense against all the stuff that's happening, which is great as always. Trump and his dick riders mad at Zelenskyy for warranted criticism. We have the top 2 Slovenian athletes in LA. Yeah, me and Luka. I'm Yugoslavian at heart, and so is Luka. USA versus Canada men's hockey going to be a bloodbath tonight. Oh, Jesus. Swinging over from Majority Report. Hey, Majority Reporters. Hope you had a good stream. Okay. Trump and his dick riders mad at Zelenskyy for warranted criticism. NFL punter arrested for hurting Trump's feelings. Hamas hostage release. Hamas hostage release makes Israel mad again. I saw randomly a screenshot of one of your tweets in the Severance fans Twitter community, and it's actually relevant. Once I touch a little money, this socialism shit is over. You know, I never said that, right? That's a fake tweet. Like, that's just my haters kept saying that over and over again, which is funny because all of the people that said that back in the day, unironically are the same people that are now MAGA communists. Like, those people used to tweet that all the time. You would tweet that, though? Let's be real. I would, which is why I don't really care. I've just never tweeted it, though. I can't take credit for it. It's actually a fan-made meme. It was originally a fan-made meme that my haters started blasting everywhere. All right, whatever. Trump and his dick riders mad at Zelenskyy for warranted criticism. NFL punter arrested for hurting Trump's feelings. Hamas hostage makes Israel mad again. Kingdom Come is gay. And more. Get in now. I haven't seen Severance Season 2 yet. Patel confirmed. Yeah, whatever. Who cares? America's collapsing. I don't care anymore. You know what I mean? Oh, no. I can't believe it. What will the FBI do? I'm probably going to get fucking arrested. Jesus. So much going on, dude. Have you watched White Lotus yet? No. I've been watching too much anime. I can't believe I'm saying that. But I've been watching too much anime. I haven't had time. Nah, dude. You're too helpful to them. You gonna talk about Sean O'Brien at all? He bitched out totally big time. No, I agree. I don't know what the fuck that was. It's like a shocking thing that he said. Shocking because like, it's not even like, oh, trans people are weird. Like, he didn't even hit that. He just hit like a line that is directly diametrically the opposite of what like a union leader would ever say in terms of national right to work. Like he was like, oh yeah, well, some states it works for some states and other states it doesn't work. I was like, the fuck? What? What's next, bro? He's gonna come out and be like, yeah, you know, the Janus decision, very good. Supreme Court trying their very best. Is crazy. That was not very hard-boiled of him. Shocking to why he said states? No, it's shocking because it's completely unacceptable for any labor union leader, let alone one of the most important labor union leaders, to ever give credence to the argument of right to work being successfully implemented in a way that is not harmful to the labor unions in any state. You know what I mean? That's like, that is the opposite. That is the opposite of what a labor union is supposed to do. I mean, it's an anti-union initiative. Not you living in Dressrosa for 4 weeks. What does that even mean? Bro, I live in a right to work state. This shit sucks. Delivery drivers don't have AC and can't strike. It's the opposite of solidarity, but it's also like just like antithetical to his existence. So I don't understand why he said that. Anyway, you see Jesse Waters' friend got let go because of DOGE. Aw. Jesse Waters was all for DOGE until cuts impacted his friend. Need to be a little bit less callous. Waters suggested people should be more sympathetic towards employees facing job cuts as a result of DOGE. Dude, classic conservatism. I ain't give a fuck until it impacts me in some way. Okay? I don't care until it hurts me or someone that I know. God, I hate it. I hate conservatives so much. They literally have made selfishness be their ideology. Imagine living in a world where selfishness is your primary directive. How is this appropriate? It does not make sense. It does not make sense that other people don't see this. It's not even like leopards eat my face, okay? That happens all the time. Chickens come home to roost. That happens all the time. Which, by the way, is not even a chicken coming home to roost because, like, it's not... I don't know Jesse Waters' friend's attitude. But this is what I've been talking about. This is what I've been talking about. It's like when you do mass layoffs, you're not only laying off like gay woke Democrats, dude. Oh my God. USAID funding cut. My boy, my goat, Johnny Harris, back at it again. Why China will never surrender to the South China Sea. I'm going to watch the shit out of this video later, and I'm going to make an assessment on whether or not USAID is still giving woke CIA Harris money, or if he's just doing it for the love of the game. Okay. Oh, it turns out DI also meant veterans. What? That's crazy. Who could have foreseen this, chat? Nobody. Absolutely nobody. Okay. You and your audience love Putin and anyone who challenges American hegemony, and by default, they will parrot the Russian propaganda about him. Yes, dude. You're right. We love Putin. Did you see that Mitch is not running for re-election? He's not even running for existence. I don't know how else to bring this up. I feel like I'm surprised that he's alive still. Okay. I'm shocked that he is still alive and breathing. Okay. It doesn't make any sense. He can't run at all. He can't even run to the bathroom. Scroll up in thread and context. This person thinks it's good that DOGE is going fast and breaking things, including laying off qualified employees, which is ostensibly the whole point of DOGE, to retain them. Megaphonics, why did you send me a random person? Megaphonics. This is a random person with 18 likes on Twitter that you just sent me. Like, you're like, hey, look at this random guy who has a bad opinion. It's farther down on a more popular thread. Is literally on topic. Are you going to watch some snippets of Bad Hosborough at some point today? Sure. What's funny about you/chatter supports Putin is that MAGA literally supports Putin. Some of them do, unironically. What is this? I'm done. I'm now supporting defund the police 100%. I already largely agree with the substance of the argument, and now I'm down for the framing too. There is no reform or transformation that can fix this. We have to start over and completely rebuild policing in this country. This is from 2020, man. What? That's 5 years ago. Things have changed a lot. Okay. Things have changed quite a bit. You ended yesterday about your friend. What? The podcaster, her? What is this? What are you? What? You ended yesterday about your friend. The podcaster. Her? What? I have no idea what you are trying to say. What? All right. Starting off the news. Oh, my Lord. Okay. What a day. 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 Okay. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. Donald Trump attacks Zelenskyy amid U.S. talks with Russia. He called him a dictator. Okay.
Now to the latest on President Trump.
And yes, I will absolute. What the hell is this? Did you see Sexpextiny's orbiter saying that Epstein is deleting evidence? Dude, the tweet you linked to me is from an account called Federal Rape. And it literally has the SS logo on it. Please exercise a little bit of caution with what you are linking. Okay. That is insane. Please be normal. That's crazy. Like, I get it. You want me to cover drama. It's fucking awesome. It's not even a drama at this point. It's just crimes and legal battles. But even then, I mean, come on, dude. All right.
And the fallout from his remarks attacking Ukraine's President Zelenskyy, calling him a dictator, and falsely blaming Ukraine for starting the war with Russia. Our chief White House correspondent, Mary Bruce, is tracking this for us. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Michael. Well, for 3 years, the U.S. has stood firmly behind Ukrainian President Zelenskyy as he fights off a Russian invasion. Now, just 4 weeks into office, President Trump is upending that bond. In a dramatic 180, he is pivoting towards Russia's Vladimir Putin and away from President Zelenskyy, now accusing the Ukrainian leader of being unsuccessful, unpopular, and illegitimate. And their war of words is escalating. This morning, President Trump intent on reframing the war in Ukraine. After falsely blaming Ukrainian President Zelenskyy for the Russian invasion, Trump now labeling the U.S. ally a dictator.
Did you cover the Jay-Z charges being dropped? Everyone in here was quick to call him a POS when it was filed. I thought it was a little weird. It didn't pass the smell test, but I mean, specifically that story didn't pass the smell test, but I'm not above. I mean, I don't think that he is like a good guy in general. I just didn't. Anyway, let's continue.
Dictator.
A dictator without elections, Zelenskyy better move fast or he's not going to have a country left.
But Trump using no such label for Russian President Putin, who has targeted his political opponents and overseen Russian elections widely criticized as neither free nor fair. Zelenskyy, the former comedian turned wartime president, won by a landslide in 2019. He's polling over 50%, but has been unable under the Ukrainian constitution to hold elections while the war rages on and the country remains under martial law.
Officially, month 1 of the Burger Reich is upon us. Okay? The Burger Reich has officially reached its first month. In that time frame, I think like 11 planes fell out of the sky. Okay? Thousands of federal employees were laid off. The price of eggs went up quite a bit. Some of the federal employees that were laid off were actually working directly on combating the avian flu, which is the reason why the price of eggs have gone up, because of this avian flu that is destroying the poultry supply. Egg prices are still rising, by the way. Don't lie to me. That was a year's worth of bullshit. Nope. We have a drunk rapist. For a defense secretary. Donald Trump is actively saying the quiet part out loud in spectacular fashion in terms of American foreign policy. After forcing a ceasefire with Israel, he is now saying that Israel should basically roll over Gaza and forcibly ethnically cleanse the Gaza Strip so he can purchase it and turn it into, I guess, Mar-a-Lago. We have RFK Jr. in charge of the HHS. And we have a guy who was on, I think, MTV, Sean Duffy, in charge of the Department of Transportation, which is also cool because everything is falling apart. Turns out it was all being held together by woke. Here's where we are. Okay? This is it. Fantastic. Libs owned. Federal government undermined. Okay? Billionaires making more money than ever before. Fantastic. If you are living in Arkansas, okay, and you haven't had gainful employment for the past 8 years and living on disability while simultaneously complaining about how the woke libtards are doing welfare to train the youth, your life is about to get a whole lot worse, okay? I still feel bad for you. I still want you to have the best life possible, but the reality of the matter is it's not going to happen. Okay, it's most likely not going to happen for you. And also, you're going to probably not realize that it's not going to happen for you. And you will probably get angrier and angrier as your conditions worsen. You still feel bad? How? I don't care. I feel bad for everybody. It doesn't matter. I don't think anyone should suffer. That is my worldview in general. I don't. I mean, I've been a longtime advocate of universal health care, which means even Nazis get health care. The entire point is that a competent federal apparatus is supposed to create some semblance of stability. So it's harder to just find yourself in the throes of reactionary politics. That's my worldview. Okay. Having said that, getting back to foreign policy, in a world where fascism and fascist movements are growing, especially in Western liberal capitalist nations, we have the number one big dog, big fascist dog in the building, actively hyping up Vladimir Putin. Let's take a look.
Zelenskyy accusing Trump of spreading Russian disinformation and Kremlin talking points. Saying President Trump unfortunately lives in this disinformation space. The Vice President J.D. Vance coming to Trump's defense and scolding Zelenskyy, saying in an interview the idea that Zelenskyy is going to change the president's mind by
Why should I feel bad for people that wanted the country to go to shit? Are you a Republican? We just talked about how Republicans' entire worldview is about spite, hurting your enemies, and also never understanding the impact of certain legislative decisions until it harms them or their immediate family members. You as a progressive person, you as a leftist, you as a liberal even, should not behave in that way. I know it gets hard sometimes, and it seems silly, and I certainly do get very mad in different moments and unload on certain chatters and whatnot, and there is a feeling of catharsis there. But having said that, in terms of my advocacy always will revolve around trying to improve people's material conditions, even if they hate me, even if they despise me, including all my fucking haters in this chat. You know, I still want them to have wonderful public transit, healthcare, better material conditions overall. I don't give a shit. You could hate on me all you want. I'm going to give you that sweet healthcare, whether you like it or not. Okay?
Mouthing him in public media, everyone who knows the president will tell you that is an atrocious way to deal with this administration. Trump's comments sending shockwaves through Europe, the German chancellor saying it is simply wrong and dangerous to deny President Zelenskyy democratic legitimacy. The intense public back and forth began when Trump falsely claimed that Ukraine started the war. But it was Putin that invaded Ukraine 3 years ago, Russian troops storming across the border. Trump's former Vice President Mike Pence trying to set the record straight, saying, Mr. President, Ukraine did not start this war. Russia launched an unprovoked and brutal invasion, claiming hundreds of thousands of lives. The road to peace must be built on the truth. All this coming as Trump has been excluding Ukraine from negotiations to end the war. Putin relishing the reopening of relations between the U.S. and Russia after a 5-hour meeting between senior Russian and American officials without any Ukrainian representation. Putin praising Trump, saying the talks have gone well and that he would like to meet with the American president. But back in Washington, some Republicans aren't so welcoming of this new thaw in relations, though most have stopped short of directly criticizing Trump.
Vladimir Putin is a gangster. He's a gangster with a black heart. He makes Jeffrey Dahmer look like Mother Teresa.
Democrats are sounding the alarm.
It's a really disturbing day.
Did he actually say Ukraine started the war? Oh, he absolutely did. I mean, we were there when he said it. It was so shocking. It was one of the very few instances where chat going, you have to rewind was valid. It was a valid rewind. Yes, I will do the Millet doing a rug pull, crypto rug pull today. CoffeeZilla apparently covered it. If you send me that video, I'll watch it. Traumatic events happening to these susceptible people leads to the shift towards agriculture. It's all part of the plan. They will continue to fuck over their base and will lead to even more rabid supporters. Good times. Yeah, I think that here's the issue, okay? If there was a competent counterbalance to all the madness that the Republicans are engaging in, that you could funnel that anger and resentment that people have into more appropriate targets and into a more productive, a more productive resistance network. Okay. But that would require the Democrats to grow a spine, a backbone, and also have real positions that they care about. Guys, stop sending me the link. It's here. Okay. It's here. It's in here. It's in here. It's in here. Calm down. We will watch it later. Okay. And if the Democrats, who are supposed to be the counterbalance to all of this growing fascism, don't do that, okay? If they don't do that, then people will continue to think like, oh, we just haven't been cruel enough to trans people or undocumented migrants or whatever. And that's the reason why I'm still suffering. Okay? That's it. And that's where we're at. Okay, I feel like nobody wants me to talk about Ukraine. Everyone is so bored of Ukraine. They're like, it's washed. Every time I talk about Ukraine, you guys are talking about like domestic affairs between Democrats and Republicans and like the voters and whatnot. Everyone's like, yeah, bro, give it up. It's over. Breathtaking reversal in U.S. foreign policy. Fareed Zakaria reacts to Trump's attacks on Zelenskyy. I don't even think that this is a reversal of U.S. foreign policy. It's just a reversal of the way that we talk about U.S. foreign policy. Okay? That's it. I will cover this part of it, though. I think this is the only part that's like the Bernie video has.
Thanks, everybody, for joining me to discuss.
Has 2.6 million views in 19 hours. All right, let's see what Bernie has to say.
Very serious issue. Yesterday, I'm
the NATO leftist you think doesn't exist? Oh, I know. I know that there are plenty of NATO quote-unquote leftists. You just can't have it both ways. You can't be a fucking pro-NATO guy and be like, I'm a Marxist-Leninist or I'm a socialist. You can't be a pro-NATO socialist. It's just it. You know, it's fine. Maybe you want workers to seize the means of production here. Okay. But as far as foreign policy goes, that's over there. That's fine. We should continue aligning with fascists as long as as long as it's at the behest of American empire. Pro-NATO-ish in the sense that it's a necessary evil? Can you elaborate for those who don't understand why NATO equals bad? NATO, in its inception, was designed to destroy socialist movements, okay, all around Western Europe and all around the globe. And that is precisely, name one socialist regime in the EU. That's it. That's what it is. There is none. What are you talking about? Yeah, that's the reason. NATO is a big part of that. In the most reductive ways, I will just simply say this, okay? I will simply say this. Think about it this way. World War II ends. Europe is in ruin, okay? The Allies have won. Who are the heroes of that story? If you look to Europe, many people saw the Red Army as liberators. They saw the USSR as genuine liberators because they were, okay? That's it. The Soviets took on the most amount of combat, incurred the highest penalties for it. And not only that, but internally within Europe, the Soviet-aligned resistance networks were seen as the heroes because they were on the right side of this conflict. The communists, the socialists, the trade unionists, all of those people that actively took up arms and engaged in militant resistance against the Nazi movement. Okay? USSR were no better than the Nazis, lol. Yeah, okay. Okay, chatter. Sure. Sure, bud. Yeah. No, it's actually worse than the Nazis, right? It's even worse. The Soviets were worse than the Nazis. So, at that stage, America already was interested in actively destroying the socialist scourge, okay? And they immediately worked to build a cooperative security network. They rebuilt Western Europe and then also simultaneously started building up a security apparatus that would get all of these countries that were maybe a lot more sympathetic to the Soviets, especially after World War II, to not be sympathetic to the USSR at all, because that was terrifying for America. So what did the United States do in that regard? Well, who was the best? Bro, stop. You don't understand Europe. Every European, whenever they see a man of my complexion, which would be considered very white in the United States of America, every European chatter that hears a man that looks like me with the name Hassan turns into fucking little Adolf, okay? Ridiculous. You don't have the high IQ to understand. You don't understand the fascism in Europe. It's very different than the way you look at it. The number one haters that had active combat experience at the time against the communists, which were now the enemy, were Nazis and fascists. So that's who America aligned with in all of these countries. They did that directly, okay? Sometimes literally Nazi generals, like in Germany. When Germany entered NATO, German generals that fucking were Nazi generals were in charge of NATO. In other countries where the resistance movement, partisan movements, like movements that were anti-fascist in general, that had more popular support, were also destabilized through NATO. False flag attacks, for example. Operation Gladio comes to mind. NATO, in this day and age, is still very much used as a protection racket, okay? So when Donald Trump says, you guys got to spend more of your money, your hard-earned dollars, that's basically the mob guy coming in and saying, you know, your storefront is broken. We're here to protect you, and we've protected you for the longest time. Be a real shame if they fucked it up further. Give us more money, okay? Now, this doesn't mean that there aren't other gangsters out there. Vladimir Putin is a gangster himself, okay? For sure. But that's just how NATO works. The USSR was an ally of the Nazis' Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. They attacked Poland together. Europe remembers and hates the communists. Yeah, totally. Europe definitely hated the communists post-World War II, like immediately after World War II. You're right. Yeah. I love when EU guys also come in here and they're like, no, you don't understand. You don't understand Europe, man. We fucking hate socialism. Like, I know, man. I know. I understand that. Trust me. I live in America. Okay. We hate socialism even more than you guys do. Okay. I promise. Anyway, I feel like I have to relitigate history every time. Every time. Would it just be the US trying to get more money, or are NATO EU countries not paying their dues? No, it's not that they're. First of all, who do you buy the weapons from when you need to spend more on your defense? A lot of these countries don't have like a big enough domestic manufacturing industry around weapons. They get it from America. So when Donald Trump says you need to do more, you need to spend more money on your defense, they mean you need to buy more of our weapons. Okay, that's what the purpose of this is. Hasanabi has beef with Europe in perpetuity. No, I don't. Anyway, let's hear what Bernie has to say.
Witnessed an extremely sad moment in American history. We saw the President of the United States aligning himself with the dictator of Russia, Vladimir Putin, to undermine the independence of Ukraine and its democracy. Let's be clear. Trump is showing us that he sees one of the world's most brutal dictators as his friend. And
it's not meant to be a gotcha. Can you explain what the U.S. did denazification if they were so anti-communism? Wait, what? Denazification was unsuccessful and didn't really happen in Germany.
Now,
but I don't want to get into that.
Democratic allies in Europe as his enemies. He wants a world that is safe for authoritarians and oligarchs, but extremely dangerous for democracies. It will not surprise you when I tell you that Trump is lying, as he so often does. Yesterday, Trump said that Ukraine started the war. That's not true. Russia invaded Ukraine twice, first in 2014, and then again in 2022. Right now, Russia occupies about 20% of Ukraine. Since Putin's horrific invasion, over 1 million people have been killed or injured. Every single day, Russia continues to rain down hundreds of missiles and drones on Ukrainian cities. Putin's forces have massacred civilians and kidnapped thousands of Ukrainian children, bringing them back to Russian re-education camps. These atrocities led the International Criminal Court to issue an arrest warrant for Putin in 2023 as a war criminal. Further, Trump called Ukrainian President Zelenskyy a dictator. That's not true either. Zelenskyy won 75% of the vote in free elections. In fact, his approval rating is higher than Trump's. In the midst of a brutal war, Ukraine's parliament continues to function and free and unfettered political debate takes place. Trump claimed that our European allies have done little to support Ukraine in its fight against Putin's invasion. He said the United States has contributed 3 times more than Europe. But that's another lie. In fact, Europe has provided more aid to Ukraine than the United States. But it's not just that Trump is lying again. That's not new. It's what this all reveals about where he wants to take our country, and in fact, the entire world. Trump is cozying up to Vladimir Putin. So who is Putin? And what kind of world does he want to build? Putin is a dictator who crushed Russia's movement toward democracy after the end.
Okay, from a purely aesthetic standpoint, I think it is fucking insane what Donald Trump is saying, 100%. But given how unpopular like supporting Ukraine is in the United States of America, I don't know if this is not for Bernie. Obviously, Bernie talks about domestic issues. That's his bread and butter. He talks about it all the time. But if this is the point of contention that the Democrats want to raise, it is only going to further make the dummies in general in the American public think, oh, they just want more war. Like Donald Trump is ending the war and these guys just want more war, if that makes sense. It's not, I wouldn't even say it's entirely correct. I'm just saying that that is the way it looks. And I feel like the Democrats have better issues to argue about right now. Would rather have the Dems die on that hill, to be honest. So we shouldn't talk about it? No. First of all, I've covered it extensively for the past 3 days to a degree where everyone is yelling at me and actively telling me to shut the fuck up about it and move on to other shit. I think it's I'm trying to figure out how this will be received by the broader public. Does that make sense? Like, I often talk about what issues you take on and how you take on those issues, and what the broader reception is for whatever issue that you're talking about. Okay? And I think in this circumstance, like, if your goal is to undermine the Trump regime, okay, doing a multifaceted approach is good. And I think that's what Bernie is doing. I think Bernie Sanders is tackling this issue from every avenue, and therefore this is appropriate for him to do. But if the Democrats hold on to exclusively this side of the bargain and not all the other things that Bernie routinely rails against, like the oligarchs controlling the government and things like that, then they're going to come across like a party that only cares about maintaining U.S. aid, and a party that only cares about, saying that we have to keep giving Ukraine more weapons, and we have to keep throwing Ukrainians into the meat grinder because Vladimir Putin is a thug. Now, it's true, Vladimir Putin is a thug. Okay? He is a gangster. But I don't think the American public broadly cares about that. Okay, but his intake is not exactly correct. Putin in the beginning did a lot of good because Russia was shit after the USSR fell. Literally mafia time without rules and laws. He became slowly normal, clean with social benefits. He does a terrible thing now, but he also contributed to making normal things in Russia back in the time. I mean, he was never a progressive, liberating socialist figure at all, though. It was more so that any leadership after the dissolution of the USSR was going to have to be tasked with maintaining some semblance of stability. It was complete collapse. Also, Vladimir Putin was our guy. That's the other side of the story that I think a lot of people forget.
Who crushed Russia's movement toward democracy after the end of the Cold War. Russia holds sham elections every 6 years where Putin wins 90% of the vote, and authorities don't even try to hide their ballot stuffing. There is no freedom of speech or free media in Putin's Russia. Protests are violently suppressed. Tens of thousands of people are imprisoned for protesting Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Political dissidents are harassed or thrown into jail. The bravest, people like Alexei Navalny, are killed outright. Hundreds of thousands of Russians have fled Putin's brutal regime since his invasion of Ukraine. But Putin has maintained control in his country by offering Russia's oligarchs a simple deal. If you give me absolute power, I'll let you steal as much as you want from the Russian people. And that's why in a country where many are struggling economically, Russian oligarchs have stashed trillions of dollars in offshore tax accounts. That is the Russian leader that Trump admires. That is the Russian oligarchy.
The way I see Vladimir Putin is basically like, if post dissolution of the USSR, a man who wanted to be the Israel of America and never got that opportunity, but he still did Israel shit. But given the historic alignments and also given Russia as a foreign regional superpower that wanted to rebuild some of its glory, they oftentimes were directly at odds with the United States of America, and therefore they were constantly treated like shit. Okay? But this does not mean that Vladimir Putin was ever a good person or ever a good leader in general, and that he was always a right-wing, pro-capitalist kleptocrat. I think that was the most revealing aspect of his interview with Tucker Carlson, where he was just like, why can't we be Israel? We want to be your Israel. We would love to be your Israel. Why did you never give us that opportunity to be your Israel, please? That's it. How do you think the relations between our allies will be if we keep aligning with Russia? I don't think that's going to be, I don't know. I don't know if that's like entirely consequential. I think tariffs are probably more damaging in terms of like America maintaining its allegiances and commitments than aligning with Vladimir Putin. Depending on how things turn out with this ceasefire, you could have a very different attitude, in a couple months. Europeans will dump the USA faster than they know it. We're spiteful creatures. I don't think they will, but I don't know. Things are definitely changing. I think it's dangerous to have this thought about Putin or anyone saying he's all bad and taking away credit he might have had. Not that I like him or anything. It's just not dialectic. No, I just think that any person who was in that position would do the exact same thing in terms of maintaining stability and under complete collapse. I mean, it's like looking at Israel's land reforms and being like, well, it's technically socialist. Okay, but it's also being utilized towards colonialism. It's being utilized towards maintaining the settler colonial project. You know what I mean? Like, sure, on principle, creating some semblance of stability in a country that was absolutely, utterly devastated is good. Anyway, tariffs are just money. Aligning with Putin and claiming Greenland is much more serious for Europeans. Tariffs are just money? What are you talking about? That's the most important part of everything. That is all this is. Tariffs are just money is so funny. What do you think happens when economies collapse? What do you think happens when, like, Europe becomes objectively poorer and poorer and poorer as a consequence of these tariffs? Yeah, tariffs are just money, except money is everything.
That he supports. But that is not the perspective of the American people. We know, and we are proud of, the fact that the United States of America is the longest standing democracy in the world. We know that many hundreds of thousands of brave Americans over the years have fought and died to defend democracy.
I wish we had more cranks, man. Like, I wish we had, like, real rugged anti-imperialist cranks. Like, there used to be people who would take, like, positions that I was shocked by. You know what I mean? In terms of, like, foreign policy. The American Congress wasn't this uniparty on foreign policy where, like, everything came across like a State Department readout. You know? Like, where are the Mike Gravells of the world? I mean, he's dead, but, like, and I'm talking, the only type of cranks that we now have are, like, weird people that have allegiances to, like, you know, the Ba'ath Party or something. You know what I mean? Like, there's never any cranks on the, like, Bernie Sanders was regarded as a crank back in the day for his unconditional support to the Latin American socialist movements and shit. Like, he used to be not this guy that you're seeing now. He used to be the guy. And it's interesting because, like, the only cranks that are allowed in American politics in terms of, like, you know, elected representatives are people like Tulsi Gabbard. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's only in one direction. And then they're not even considered cranks after a while anyway. The funniest part is, like, two of the people who started the Gravel Institute went into investment banking after it fell off. Wasn't literally the Ukraine guy, the #1 Ukraine guy, a Gravel Institute kid too? The dude who was like, how can I make, like, the dude who went to Ukraine and then interviewed a bunch of people that work for think tanks in Ukraine with clips out of context, like with my classic clips, Hassan is pro-Russia. And then he made, like, a video about how, you know, Ukrainians were very mad about Hassan. That's, like, an insane thing to do, by the way. I genuinely do think that that's, like, wild. When you're actively hands-on in a conflict area and you're like, I'm going to do drama content here. You're literally pro-Russia even now? Yes, of course. I am pro-Russia. Yes. I love Vladimir Putin. You caught me.
We also know that our allies in the world are those countries that believe in democracy, not authoritarianism. In this critical moment in our history, I hope that every American, regardless of political perspective, will stand tall and say yes to democracy, no to oligarchy, and no.
I mean, this is pretty basic stuff, and he's not wrong on the broad scopes of this conversation, you know, the broad strokes of this conversation. Like, yeah, Donald Trump is insane. Why do American progressives not look at the actually leftist around the world position? Even in Germany, the left party Die Linke is yelling about NATO, etc. Latin American leaders have talked about it, but for some reason, Americans are so stupid. American exceptionalism requires Americans to think that Western chauvinism is the normative position and that there is, like, America does bad things every now and then, but only in the rearview mirror. And they do those bad things for the greater good. That's it. It is one of the hardest to tackle issues, I think, overall. It's the one thing that makes so many progressive people lose their minds whenever I talk about American imperialism as a bad thing. Bernie is contradicting his support for self-determination of Latin American socialist movements by supporting Ukrainian self-determination. Got it? When did I say that Ukrainian self-determination is wrong, or that Bernie Sanders is wrong for... I didn't even say that Bernie Sanders is wrong for this video. What the fuck are you talking about? I think you guys imagine a position that that you want me to have, so it's easier to just be like, yo, you're in support of this thing. By the way, Russian officials were surprised by Trump turning to praise them so hard. According to Wall Street Journal, after 3 days of American efforts to isolate Russia, 3 years of American efforts to isolate Russia, U.S. policy took a significant shit towards Moscow in recent days. Russian officials have cheered the change, but even they appeared to be caught off guard by the speed of... On Tuesday, they were like, we did not foresee this level of glaze, which is understandable. It is pretty crazy. It is definitely like there was a shift that I think was appropriate, that I think the Biden administration should have engaged with as well, which is to not instantly say like, no, we're never going to have any kind of talks with Vladimir Putin at all. But of course, because the Biden administration was allergic to doing any sort of diplomacy there, even though, yes, what Russia is doing is objectively evil. Okay, please don't fucking yell at me about this. You know what my position is. The Trump administration took that opportunity to be like, hey, by the way, Vladimir Putin is awesome and Zelenskyy is the real evil villain in this story. It's psychotic. Not only is it psychotic, but it's just wrong. It's objectively wrong. Anyway, 3 years of American efforts to isolate Russia, U.S. policy took a significant shift. On Tuesday, top-level U.S. and Russian officials met in Saudi Arabia to discuss the ways to settle the war in Ukraine and reset Washington's relations with Moscow, just days after President Trump and President Vladimir Putin spoke by phone. Then, a war of words escalated between Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, with the U.S. president calling him a dictator on Wednesday, which is, again, kind of funny because, you know, the other side, like if Zelenskyy was more of a dictator, I think Trump would like him. If Zelenskyy was like a full-blown dictator, I think Donald Trump would genuinely like him. He's not exactly, he's no Ukrainian leadership historically has been a infallible and uncorrupted group of people that want to do what's right by Ukrainians or whatever. But like, having said that, I think obviously Vladimir Putin is infinitely closer to that term than Zelenskyy is. Axios scoop: U.S. and Ukraine discuss improved minerals deal after Trump raged at Zelenskyy. Nice. All right, but before we get to that, let's take a look at Donald Trump and how angry the Trump dick riders are that Zelenskyy dare get mad.
All right, President Trump not mincing words with Ukrainian President Zelenskyy as the U.S. tries leading negotiations with Russia to end the war.
The only thing he was really good at was playing Joe Biden like a fiddle. He played him like a fiddle. That's an expression we use. A dictator without elections. Zelenskyy better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. Got to move fast because that war is going in the wrong direction. In the meantime, we're successfully negotiating an end to the war with...
What? It also feels a bit like American exceptionalism when this entire chat and you keep dunking on EU whenever Ukraine comes up. I can understand some of it, but I also think you're wrong on thinking EU isn't capable of supporting Ukraine on its own. And I also think EU is willing to do so. The peace talks in Riyadh won't accomplish anything. It's all bluff and show from Trump. He doesn't understand how dogged Ukraine and EU are on this. Okay, if you say so. I don't think you're right about this. But maybe you are. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to be nice. I'm going to be nice about this. EU guys on this chat are very intense. Yeah. You guys love hitting the EU lion too, sir. Why don't you think he's right? I don't know. Because even fucking Keir Starmer, when he was like, yeah, we'll be committed to defending Ukraine ourselves if America doesn't do it, we'll immediately turn around and go, and it's actually, it amounts to nothing if America is not a part of the security cooperation in the same sentence. So I've yet to hear anything other than like paper tiger posturing from European leadership about security commitments to Ukraine. without America being the primary party that will guarantee. The guarantor of security always is the United States of America. Is the USA unable to end the war and Ukraine not lose any land? Yes. I don't foresee any situation where Russia doesn't take annexed land. It would take at least 5 years for the EU to be able to support Ukraine without America. I don't think. What is this? I'm glad he's found peace and not doing movies or TV shows anymore. Zachary Levi is reflecting on why he felt it was more important to be candid about his support for Donald Trump than worry about his career. I felt peace because I knew that this was more important than saving my career. Yeah, your career. Okay, big dog. All right.
Russia.
So President Zelensky firing back.
A red EU will rise, the sun is shining, and fuck USA, EU bloc. Okay. Listen, if Europe turns around and finds themselves aligned with China, okay, I will have a very different attitude, okay? You got a new a new network of Axis powers, okay? Growing fascist movements in European countries as well. And then EU says, no, we are defending socialism. We are defending what remains of progressive policies. And we're going to do that. We're going to get militant again. But this time, you know, we're no longer on the side of America, and America is the Nazi Germany in this equation. And we are going to join forces, and we are going to be the ally. We are going to be the allied forces alongside with the Chinese Communist Party. And we're going to fight fascists again. I mean, we're making shit up. I might as well make shit up further. You know what I mean? Why would they defend a proven failed ideology? See? I like that you're saying that while simultaneously, I already said like the Chinese Communist Party, as in like, is China bad because they're communist? Does that mean there's existing socialism in the universe that the European forces could align with? You know?
Calling Trump's comments.
Was China's stance on Ukraine? I mean, China benefits greatly from, or not benefits greatly, but China doesn't like the instability either, but at least like, you know, they see it as like their ally penetrating the Western hegemony, but they also have maintained a position that I think is even more aggressive than America, as like the primary party backing the Russian side, where they've said time and time again, like, you got to dial this back to Russia, and also have said we have to get to the table and do a ceasefire instantly. I don't know if they like how much Russia and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea also link up either. Okay. You shit on NATO, but you also go, EU ain't shit without USA, and pretend you don't understand why EU frogs back NATO. Yeah, but the EU frogs that back NATO also simultaneously think the European Union will be able to mount a defense against any kind of power united, and they'll be able to single-handedly defend Ukraine or some shit. I don't know what the fuck is going on there. There's a reason why they're pro-NATO.
It's Russian disinformation, prompting Vice President Vance to respond. The idea that Zelensky is going to change the president's mind by bad-mouthing him in public media. Everyone who knows the president will tell you that is an atrocious way to deal with this administration. Here to react, Trump National Security Advisor Michael Waltz. Michael, fresh off your peace mission with Russia over in Riyadh. Want to get to that in a moment. But your sense of the fractured relationships now between President Zelensky and President Trump?
Well, Brian, there's obviously a lot of frustration here. Vice President Vance was very frustrated leaving the Munich Security Conference. Our Secretary of Treasury, who traveled all the way to Kyiv, is also frustrated, all on top of the president, obviously, who makes his frustration well known. And that's because we presented the Ukrainians really an incredible and historic opportunity to have the United States of America co-invest with Ukraine, invest in its economy, invest in its natural resources, and really become a partner in Ukraine's future in a way that's sustainable, but also would be, I think, the best security guarantee they could ever hope for, much more than another pallet of ammunition. And so to have the United States co-invested, to grow their pie, to allow their economy to flourish over time, and, oh, by the way, to have the American taxpayer recoup the hundreds of billions of dollars, as the Europeans do, all makes sense. Why we're getting this pushback, and certainly this kind of, as the vice president said, bad-mouthing in the press for all the administration.
Also, this is the American position. Many chatters have asked me what the Chinese position is. In May 2024, there was a Brazilian-Chinese 6-point plan that was put forth. Remember, China is the party backing, is the large superpower backing Russia in this equation. In May 2024, the Brazilian and Chinese governments proposed a 6-point plan: non-escalation, direct negotiation, an international peace conference accepted by both Russia and Ukraine, and discussion of all peace plans, humanitarian assistance, exchange of prisoners of war, no attacks on civilians, no use of weapons of mass destruction, no attacks on nuclear power stations, respect for the Convention on Nuclear Safety, stable global trade. Two sides call for efforts to enhance international cooperation. You are aware about the anti-Zionist rabbis that got hit by pro-Israeli media is lying about it again. This is the new era of false flag ops in the U.S. Sorry for derailing. Yes, I don't know anything that you're talking about, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, maybe we'll get to that later. Okay. Currency, finance, trade, food security for critical infrastructure, including oil and gas pipelines, undersea optical cables, electricity, energy facilities, fiber optic networks, so as to protect the stability. And as far as I understand, even Zelenskyy was, according to the Kyiv Independent, Zelenskyy was open to integrating China's and Brazil's proposals into the peace formula around October 27. Okay. Why didn't they? Another ship plan without Ukraine? Wait, what are you talking about? This plan literally says Ukraine gets a seat at the table. And not only that, but you also then said, why didn't they impose this plan on their ally Russia? This is them saying this is their position on their ally Russia. You asked me what the Chinese plan for Ukraine is, or what the Chinese statements have been, China's position on the political settlement of the Ukrainian crisis. And I'm telling you what it is by using fucking Wikipedia. And you're over here still yelling about it. I don't know what you want me to do. This is yet another instance where Donald Trump comes across as a madman. And whether or not people have a lot of resentment and hatred for the Chinese government is, once again, coming across as more reasonable. China, at the end of the day, does not have the same level of control over Russia as America has over Israel, for example, or as America has over Ukraine. So with the limited amount, I mean, they do have a lot of influence, I think, but with the amount of influence that they have, this is what they've sought to use that influence for. Anyway, what is the position of the typical American? I think the typical American position on this is they don't give a shit, and they don't want to give any more money to Ukraine because they've been propagandized in many different ways, but also because Americans just don't like giving endless weapons overseas or money overseas to endless conflict. That's why they have a very similar position on Israel too. Not that it fucking matters, because let's be real, foreign policy is not dictated. No, don't say except for Israel. You think Americans broadly like giving unlimited weapons to Israel? Are you crazy? America is becoming more and more anti-Semitic every single day as a direct consequence of our unlimited allegiance to Israel. Literally every day. And Israel also consistently lying and pairing up their violent actions with Judaism. There was already plenty of anti-Semitism that existed, but now it's, this kind of shit is growing that attitude. Conservatives might not talk too much, at least like conservative mouthpieces might not talk too much about giving money to Israel. And Donald Trump certainly doesn't talk about that either, obviously, because he loves giving money to Israel, because he's gotten money from Miriam Adelson. Okay. But if you were to ask like the average American, I mean, there's a million different polls conducted on this process. Even Republicans have been in favor of a ceasefire and conditional aid or stopping weapons transfers.
Administration has done in his first term as well, and all the United States has done for Ukraine is it's unacceptable. They need to tone it down and take a hard look and sign that deal.
So do you believe that this is reconcilable? Do you believe that this is two people just getting mad at each other, or do you think these are...
Not to drag this combo, because I agree with you 90%, but I would like to point out that you can't simultaneously hold a position that the EU ain't shit, which is true, because the EU have had U.S. protection for decades, has not been needed, and won't drift from U.S. vassalage, and also point out that the EU is drifting fascist. The former is accelerating the latter. Okay, you said you agree with me 90%, and then the 10% you also agree with me on, unless I misunderstood. Yes, America is very much responsible post-World War II for any kind of nascent fascist movement existing in Europe, specifically Western Europe, what do you think we are? We're fucking fascist too. What do you mean? What is advocacy for mass deportations of undocumented migrants and trying to desperately erase trans people out of existence? What is that, if anything, but fascism? Such a lefty, degen lefty take, Keck W. Yeah, I know you haven't seen the victims that are stuck in a hotel in Panama City, for example, or the thousands of people that are getting rounded up and being sent to Guantanamo Bay in a concentration camp right now. But just because it's invisible to you doesn't mean it's not happening. Okay? It is infinitely more degenerate to actually do those violent things for no discernible reason than to correctly call that fascist. You can culp all day, every day. You can literally deport every single undocumented migrant. Your life is still going to suck dick and balls, okay? Ottoman Empire ain't coming back. Ali Akbar? What? Ottoman Empire? So you want illegals to stay? Yes. I want them to no longer be illegal. I want them to be processed. Very mentally stable chatter, yeah.
There are two countries going different ways.
Oh, I think so. The president also said how much he loves the Ukrainian people. And again, he was the first to arm them back in his first term. We've done a lot for the security of Ukraine. And to say that we're going to change the nature of our aid going forward I don't think, should offend anyone. Look, the president is ready to drive this war to an end. He has made that clear over and over again. And just a week ago, Brian, he had both President Putin on the phone and Zelenskyy on the phone, literally within minutes of each other. And both were saying, only you, President Trump, can lead this war to a conclusion when no one else has been able to. And in fact, the last administration didn't even really try. So now President Trump is doing what he should as a leader and pushing hard diplomacy with strength and leadership. And, you know, no one should be surprised about that.
Right. In terms of President Zelenskyy, his approval rating's around 54%. And
wait a minute, Brian. But Donald Trump said his approval rating was at 4%. Now you're telling me that President Zelenskyy has a higher approval rating than Donald Trump? What's going on? This doesn't make any sense.
He can't really have
I'm stupid. What does that mean?
elections while he's at war. That's in their constitution. And it seems as though they...
By the way, the reason why he's saying that, okay, just make no mistake, is because foreign policy at the end of the day is uniparty, okay? Yeah, so Donald Trump can speak out of both sides of his mouth on this issue, but look, you see, the loyals are still like, yeah, well, of course Zelenskyy can't actually maintain and have elections like... I mean, this is directly the opposite of what Donald Trump is claiming. It's a complete lie. Donald Trump's statements are ridiculous on the issue. And under every other circumstance, people like Brian Kilmeade will go along with that lie. So why is it that in this situation, they're not going along with it and just basically doing a little bit of ass covering?
Both sides understood that until yesterday. What do you see your role going forward as early as today? Maybe to get the two on the phone?
Well, look, this notion that the Ukrainians haven't been consulted, I have to push back on that, Brian. I've been talking to his national security advisor, Zelenskyy's national security advisor, on a regular basis. We just mentioned the meetings both Secretary of State and Vice President Vance have had with him. Special Envoy Keith Kellogg is out there literally right now. So we have had plenty of engagement and dialogue in order to drive this deal home, this economic partnership, and move forward towards peace. And also for our European friends, look, we have President Macron of France coming next week. We have Prime Minister Starmer of the United Kingdom coming next week. I spoke with all of their national security advisors, including Germany's, yesterday. So we are consulting our allies. We're consulting the Ukrainians. There's a term for this in diplomacy. It's called shuttle diplomacy, because bringing everybody to the table at once just hasn't worked in the past. So we've engaged one side, we've engaged the other side, and then we're going to have a process moving forward under President Trump's direction and leadership.
And as you know, a lot of Democrats kind of hit the roof with all this back and forth. Listen.
It has been remarkable to watch Donald Trump line up with Putin so directly that it's almost as if Putin writes his talking points.
This feels like one of the biggest kind of American surrender since Vietnam.
The mental gymnastics that you see Republicans undertaking to somehow justify the unjustifiable.
Republicans, at this point, have power to change what Trump is doing if they can find their spines, and it may be the whole country's job to help them find it.
And your retort.
I'm not gonna lie. I foresee this backfiring. Like, I really think that there is an appropriate way to talk about it in terms of like wanting peace. Like, they should literally always emphasize that peace is the appropriate measure here. And I don't think the Democrats are doing that. Backfiring on who? I think this will backfire on liberals, Democrats in general. That's how I see it. And then Donald Trump will, while simultaneously dick riding Vladimir Putin into oblivion, will still turn around and say, like, see, I did this. I achieved this. The Democrats want endless war. That's what he's going to keep saying. That's what he has said. And it worked. It literally worked. It worked in the election in favor of Donald Trump. Their inability to read the room is alarming in this situation. Libs were right about Russiagate. I don't think they were correct about Russiagate in general, but they are right about Donald Trump personally fucking loving Vladimir Putin. I think that Donald Trump genuinely loves authoritarian strongmen. He does. He even loves fucking Kim Jong-un. I mean, it's obvious. He respects them. He wants to be like them. I don't think they want the war to end. I just think they want to say Ukraine is preventing peace like they had done with Gaza and Hamas not agreeing to peace deals when they had what? I think the correct way to go about this is to say that Donald Trump is undermining the Ukrainian position, which he is, okay? But ultimately, we are in favor, as the Democrats, we are in favor of a managed negotiation that will put an end to all of this bloodshed. Like, that is, if you say something along those lines, you can at least, like, I guess, kind of take credit, but not really. Then they can just like turn around and be like, well, you had all the power to stop this and you didn't. I don't know, man. I really think that being the party of war is not good for the Democrats. Like, being seen as the party of war is not good for the Democrats. It is a losing position. Isn't everything Trump saying about Ukraine sort of true? No. There is some brutal honesty there in terms of like who gets the control, who holds all the cards. America does. Okay. In terms of brutal honesty, we want your minerals. That's brutal honesty. Okay. That's just saying the quiet part out loud. But as far as like Zelenskyy is a dictator and he has a 4% approval rating and he sucks dick and he doesn't get to have a say in this process, and then like openly optically undermining him in general is, or even claiming that he is responsible for Vladimir Putin invading his country, it's all of that stuff is completely incorrect. It is ridiculous. Yeah. I think it's still born out of the same issue though with the Democratic Party. For the past 4 years, Americans saw what the Democrats did in terms of Ukraine, what the Democrats did in terms of Gaza in the last year. And it's very difficult to just like go back on that out of nowhere. And they had bipartisan support for both, mind you, okay? They love that shit. The Republicans love that shit. Now they're turning around and just staying quiet as Donald Trump does his thing.
Toward to that.
You know, I guess all of those Democrats were perfectly fine with seeing hundreds of thousands of people literally on a daily, weekly, monthly basis in a meat grinder of a war that has turned into an endless war under Joe Biden, who could not define success and basically said, as long as it takes, as much as it takes, no matter how many people die, no matter how much death and destruction, because I haven't heard any one of them actually present a plan to bring this war to an end. President Trump has done that, and we're going to execute it.
Right. To me, this reminds me of Lion Ted and De Sanctimonious. When the president locks horns and gets angry, that's what he does. But he also could put his hand out and say, let's move forward. That's where this reminds me of.
And, Brian, and the same ones that are screaming for peace and are screaming for a ceasefire over in Gaza, I guess are screaming for endless war in Europe. It's nonsensical. This is a common sense plan. They may not like it, but we're going to drive it forward, and everybody will stop squawking when the fighting ends.
When the Russians say we met with President, we met with you and Marco Rubio, and we got the sense that the U.S. is with us, are they wrong?
Well, I think our interests are aligned in stopping the war. They have different reasons, of course, in the Ukrainians. There's still all kinds of disagreement that we need to pull both sides together. But, Brian, that was a historic first step, and it started with that historic phone call that President Trump had with Putin and the confidence-building measure that we had with the release of Mark Fogel. Remember, that was just a week ago, Brian. I don't think time is on anyone's side, and we're going to move forward full speed ahead to drive this war to an end. And then we can talk about broader geostrategic relationships, and that's the conversation we had with the Russians, but it's a first of many to come.
Would it be great if the Russians handed back the 20,000 children they stole from the Ukrainian families, renamed them, and handed them out to Russians? Would they ever agree to give the children back?
We talked about what we're going to have to do in terror.
See, Brian Kilme had a uniparty position here. Okay, notice how he's not attacking Donald Trump, but he's still saying the same exact things that Democrats and Republicans also agree upon. And by the way, there's truth to what he's saying here as well in terms of like a conditional negotiation. It's not that Brian Kilme is woke. It's just that, you know, he's trying to get to Trump to the best of his ability. If you were to ask these dudes behind closed doors, I'm willing to bet that they have a way more hardline stance towards, like, they want endless support for Ukraine and abso-fucking-lutely would be on board with it if Donald Trump were to come out and advance the exact same agenda.
Territory, what we're going to have to do in security guarantees, what we're going to have to do kind of in the future broader security arrangement, the future of our relationship, and those kinds of exchanges, prisoner exchanges, children, what's happened in some of these areas. It's been a devastating war. All of that should be resolved, and we are trying to resolve. But for everyone to just throw their hands up and say, well, we don't like what they're doing, but we don't have a plan either, is just unacceptable. But shouldn't surprise anybody in Washington, D.C.
And we agree. I think everyone now agrees. The war has got to come to an end, and President Trump is in the perfect place to do it. Hopefully these former friends...
Russia's pretty weak right now. NATO should finish the job. Yeah, you are Mr. Fantasy.
Will be future friends again, Zelenskyy and Trump, of course. Michael Waltz, great job. Thanks so much for getting up with us this morning.
It's like stepping back in time. Many mining facilities across the country haven't been upgraded since the 1930s. Unlike the agricultural sector, which is the country's biggest money spinner, mining represents a small slice of the country's earnings, so there's been no incentive to invest in infrastructure. Until now.
Is Trump's goal to turn Russia against China? I think it's to try to undermine the Russian-Chinese allegiance for sure. But more importantly, I think he just wants this. He wants all of this. He wants to pick the scraps of Ukraine for his buddies. That's what he wants. I mean, he's pretty open about it, too.
To $16 trillion worth of rare earth minerals are said to sit encased in rock across Ukraine. US President Donald Trump has his eyes on it, and Ukraine wants US help to develop it. The mining business is excited about the future. One CEO in Kyiv told me that getting investment on favorable terms is key.
American government, in frames of this deal, should understand that we have only basis for that investment. Because in any case, everybody who want to work here in Ukraine, who want to use Ukrainian natural resources, should invest lots of money for lots of time.
Even if there is a negotiated end to the war and Russia returns
Donald Trump is live with Tiger Woods
territories and Ukraine
honoring Black History Month. That's crazy, dude. What the fuck? Oh my God. Okay, let's just get back to this.
A favorable deal that includes millions, perhaps billions of dollars upgrading facilities like this. There is still a longer-term issue, and that is the environmental impact. The mining sector is already a major polluter in Ukraine, and environmentalists are worried that could get worse.
Of course, we understand that the production of useful mines is extremely harmful to the environment. as a result of which the ecological environment is damaged, ecosystems are damaged, especially if the production is carried out directly in an open way. All these negative factors have a negative effect on the environment.
No one's currently looking closely at what the environmental impact as a result of a greatly expanded mining sector could be. The conversation currently all revolves around how the potential trillions of dollars will help Ukraine, and that conversation has a price tag. According to US President Donald Trump, it's $500 billion in return for rare earth minerals, and that's not a deal that Ukraine thinks is reasonable. Imran Khan, Al Jazeera, Central Ukraine.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest.
Dude, this is awesome. We are major Reddit scoop. Investigation reveals extraordinary degree of astroturfed anti-capitalism, radical Marxist Islamist propaganda on some of the biggest subreddits, including r/documentaries. Hasbara, baby. $150 million from Israel, baby. They're like, Reddit is the most pro-Israel platform out there. And like the random subreddits that aren't sucking the dick of the Israeli apartheid, they have to take it out. They literally have to destroy what remains. What any kind of criticism of Israel is completely unacceptable. Okay? The terrorist propaganda Reddit pipeline, how an ultra-leftist network hijacked some of the biggest non-political subreddits to censor its ideological enemies and distribute terrorist propaganda. Asman ate this shit up so hard. Oh my God. It's already been reposted in the dipshit subs. They're trying to astroturf this trash. Yeah, it's fantastic. There's like a select few subreddits out there that where you can just be like, hey, I think what Israel's doing is wrong without immediately being lasered. And they're like, nope, not enough. Not enough for us. Oh, they're gearing up for paid subscription for certain subreddits. That's how they will ban these anti-Israel subreddits. So many subreddits popular / not are so anti-Palestine pro-censorship. It's insane to think the Palestine sentiment on Reddit is positive. Yeah. I love this shit, dude. I love the masquerading of like, anarchist. I love when anarchists come in and they're like, these guys are pro-terrorists actually. And let me tell you, they're misogynistic. It's actually not the left position and the progressive position to be pro-Palestine. It's actually the leftist position is actually to be pro-Israel. I'll have you know, Israel is very gay and very woke about women. Amazing. A Discord group has hijacked hundreds of subreddits, many of them with millions of followers, to censor its ideological enemies and distribute propaganda directly sourced from U.S.-designated terror organizations such as Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the Houthis, and many more. The subreddits the group now has control over are composed of central subreddits including r/Palestine, r/Israel crimes, and r/apartheid Israel, which are topically relevant and built around overlapping ideologies that include anti-capitalism, radical Marxism, Islamism, and anti-Western and pro-Iranian regime sentiment. Yeah. These are ideologies that overlap and definitely don't contradict, by the way. Yeah, Islamism and Marxism. Radical Marxism. But it's with a cluster of million-member strong subreddits infiltrated and now controlled by the network that have nothing to do with the Mideast or even politics generally that the r/Palestine network is particularly effective, illustrating an extraordinary degree of unambiguous astroturfing meant to convince unsuspecting users that there's a widespread anti-Israel, anti-Western Marxist movement online. These include, but aren't limited to, r/documentaries, 20 million members, r/there was an attempt, 7.2 million, public freakout, 4.7 million, r/faumoai, what? r/I am a total piece of shit, 2.1 million. Amazing. Yeah. An astonishing investigation by Ashley Rinsberg in Pirate Wires today reveals the full scope of the operation. I don't know how you say how do you say this? I don't know how to say this. FOMA? Oh, FOMA? Like drama but fake? Yeah. Better watch out. There's going to be a follow-up article saying that the Discord group is questioned as Hoscord and the ADL is sending hit squads to your house. Yeah. Yeah, it's a celebrity gossip subreddit, but they are consistently pro-Palestine. That subreddit is very pro-Palestine, but of course, that's the reason why they're like, not allowed, not allowed. You can't do that. We're coming after you. You can't even do a little bit of celebrity goss if you also have a, humane position on Israel's genocide of the Palestinians. It's also ironic because, one, they're obviously lying. Here's TrueAnon. The Reddit for fans of TrueAnon podcast is not controlled by a group of anybody. This writer is lying. In the r/TrueAnon subreddit, also controlled by the group, a user posted a screen grab of a message from the head of the Houthis posted in the group's Telegram channel. That last line of the post, taken directly from RNN, reads, "Together we are united until liberation." Wow, I can't believe that subreddit dedicated to the TrueAnon podcast would actually go through the fucking Telegram channels and post screen grabs of what the Al-Qassam brigades are. Completely unacceptable. The fuck? Guide to Palestine resistance groups posted by RNN. They posted these two posts. The subreddit needs to be banned immediately. Amazing. Neither of these people control the subreddit, so not sure what's going on with how this is phrased. Anyways, good job with the Reddit investigation, brother. Looking forward to the novel. Titled In the Heart of the Jungle, it tells the story of a young man from a privileged background on the rise of the New York's... Oh, what the fuck? Humiliating to have to mention our subreddit, but it's even worse to have the name of this nonpartisan small business mentioned in Pirate Wires. Pirate Wires is run by a Peter Thiel guy. Oh my God, I am shocked. Mike Solana, a Peter Thiel protege, has made his Pirate Wires newsletter a must-read among the anti-woke investor class. I sure hope no liberals are really eating up this very obviously designed pro-Israel propaganda here. I sure hope no liberals are eating this dick right now, like crazy style, hopping on it and bouncing on it, not realizing that this position right here from a right-wing libertarian charlatan directly involved with the Trump administration maybe has a lot to do, maybe it has the most to gain from undermining the limited amount of pro-Palestinian positions that exists on one of the most pro-Israel platforms out there. Yeah. What is this? Some other more amazing work? Wow, we should turn Guantanamo Bay into the next Hong Kong. Why the U.S. should use its perpetual lease on the Guantanamo Bay to turn it into a special economic zone. Nice. What is this? I said I would stop talking about it, but it's important. Below are screenshots of DGG chat logs admitting to openly brigading. The reason Dan Cultman's r/Hassan Piker Snark subreddit was removed due to them calling to mass harass Twitch staff and Twitch ads / media productions that speak to Hassan, all based on slanderous lies. H3 Snark, despite being weird to focus directly on Ethan's crash out, has strict rules in place. You can get banned for so much as mentioning a crew member's name. I think it's a weird sub, but in terms of breaking rules, they don't. The main issue is I've been seeing is that because Ethan has limited any discussion or criticism of his content, he's alienated his fans who felt snubbed and found a place to air out their grievances on this criticism. But yeah, here, the point is they also actively inside of DGG will work to brigade subreddits and then claim that I'm doing that all the fucking time. And then point to the one instance where I tried to get banned from LSF. Yeah, their harassment of Twitch staffers is honestly one of the worst parts of their nuke hate campaign shit. I know. It was fucking insane. It's crazy because, like, they don't care necessarily. Like, Diddy Jeers or Sex Pestiny doesn't actually have, like, a real dog in this fight, right? They just want to fucking come after me. But in that process, they found an unlikely ally that does have some semblance of institutional legitimacy. And that ally is pro-Israeli groups. Pro-Israeli groups operate in a very similar fashion to the way that Sex Pestiny's community operates, where they'll tarnish the reputation of people that are pro-Palestine, and they will go after their gainful employment. They will go at there's no end to what they will do. I mean, they literally fucking had doxing trucks immediately after October 7 on college campuses. Remember how many people Bill Ackman personally wanted jailed for basically writing an article talking about Israel's apartheid and how it contributed to October 7, after October 7, an article that was almost identical to Haaretz's editorial board opinion, it also immediately after October 7. Yeah. There's been so much unhinged shit. You can do whatever the fuck you want in terms of, like, you know, defending Israel, and none of that even reaches public consciousness. People don't go, what the fuck is this? Unless they directly are impacted by it or maybe see it on the off chance that they see it. Can we go one day without drama frogs derailing the stream? I don't think this is necessarily just drama frogs derailing the stream, because I think this is a very deliberate attempt to try to silence criticism of Israel on the remaining the remaining pro-Palestine subreddits. Okay, that's very obviously what's going on here. It's not just like drama. It's Hasbara that Israel paid for, by the way. Anyway, Yeah. The guy who wrote the article is a PragerU presenter. Wow, shocking. Ashley Rinsberg is an American novelist, media commentator, essayist, and journalist based in Israel. Rinsberg was born in South Africa and raised in the United States. He attended Cornell University, where he double majored in philosophy and science and technology studies. In 2021, Rinsberg published A Gray Lady Winked, How the New York Times' Misreporting, Distortions, and Fabrications Radically Alter History. The book looks at how instances of major misreporting and inaccuracies at the New York Times have had a substantial impact on international events, American and world policy, politics, and history, not only setting the agenda for the news, but influencing what millions of people believe to be factual. Rinsberg says the book was a response to learning from William F. Schreyer's The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, that at the outset of the World War II, the New York Times reported Poland invaded Germany. Yeah, that's the guy who wrote this article for a publication owned by Peter Thiel, a publication that Peter Thiel has a lot of control over. This is the major Reddit scoop that they're running with. I can't even get to it. Continue reading with a free trial. No thanks. What is this? I can't click on that. This was posted on r/Jewish and r/Destiny by the same person. Yeah, I mean, it's pure projection. Whenever these guys talk about like a coordinated effort to brigade or coordinated effort to promote like pro-Palestinian sentiment, they're actually quite literally astroturfing. Yeah. That's why I said the DDGers found unlikely allies, okay? They found unlikely allies that have some semblance of institutional legitimacy at a time when they are at their weakest. Not the DDGers, I mean, but the pro-Israel lobby and pro-Israel groups are at their weakest due to the tide shift, the attitude shift overall about like the way Israel is broadly received. The freaks are always looking for conspiracies to follow, but they never jump on these. Yeah. Well, because, you know. Okay. So if you criticize Elon Musk, Trump's DOGE will send you a letter. Members of Congress must have the right to forcefully oppose the Trump administration. I will not be silenced. Wait, what? Anyway, let's get back to this. Hamas has released the bodies of 4 Israeli hostages.
This morning near Khan Yunis, a most macabre handover ceremony as music blares. Hamas fighters carry the coffins of 4 dead Israeli hostages, 2 of them children, the youngest to have been abducted on October the 7th. On stage, an offensive propaganda message blaming
offensive propaganda message? The war criminal Netanyahu and his Nazi army killed them with missiles from Zionist warplanes. You can't even call the dude genociding you a Nazi or a war criminal, even though the fucking International Criminal Court is also calling him a war criminal. He has a active arrest warrant, okay? What are we doing? There is no lie here. This is correct. The fuck?
Prime Minister Netanyahu for their deaths. We don't know for certain how they were killed, but it was Hamas who took them from their homes.
So I think it was in November. People are getting mad at the way they presented these bodies, which the Israeli occupying force literally dropped on unmarked body bags by the truckloads. No, the reason why they presented the bodies this way was because in the month of November, this family that was obviously taken hostage by Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, in the month of November, a year ago, or more than a year ago, Hamas reported that they had died in an Israeli bombing campaign, okay? The media, including Guardian, BBC, and other Western outlets, actually reported on it. It was in November 2023, okay? November 2023. I remember covering it because I was like, yeah, obviously, what's more likely that this is... At the time, people were saying, oh, Hamas killed them to get their rocks off or something. You know what I mean? And I told you at the time that if Hamas were to kill a hostage, you would know about it because they would do it in broad daylight because hostages are their only leverage. Okay? Of course, they said it was from the Israel bombing. Why would they not? Why would they kill those hostages on their own and then blame Israel? Why wouldn't they just simply keep them alive as they did, so many hostages to the best of their ability, in spite of the endless bombing? And this is not just my attitude on this. This is reported directly from the hostages that have been released in the past 16 months. You don't just kill hostages for fun when you take hostages. Hostages are your only point of leverage.
In November,
this is from Sky News.
Hamas said in November, after October the 7th, so quite soon after, that 3, Shiri and her 2 boys, had been killed in an Israeli airstrike, and they then offered to send the whole family with Yarden 2 back to Israel, and Israel refused, saying that this was psychological warfare. So
Even the New York Times reported back, fears grow over fate of Bibas family in Gaza. Hamas's arm wing says the hostages, a mother and her 2 young children, have been killed in Israeli airstrikes. Israel's military said it was assessing the claim. Concern for members of the Bibas family, a mother and her 2 young children who have become symbols of the hostages held in Gaza, deepened on Wednesday afternoon when Hamas's arm wing, the Al-Qassam brigades, claimed 3 had been killed in Israeli airstrikes. They literally also said that they would send the bodies back. They also released the father. Why would they kill the other 3 and then let the father go? It just makes no sense. I know. But if your position on this is that these are, barbaric rapist monsters who are just operating on no emancipatory purpose or no logical through line, even if you don't agree with their methods, the notion that they are operating on pure anger, resentment, and just want to kill Jewish people because they're anti-Semitic, yeah, then you'll believe this. And many people do believe that, for the record. And that's precisely why they will go around being like, no, you don't understand. They actually killed them. Why? Well, because, for fun. When you are propagandized to that degree, you believe that they are illogical beasts. Exactly. Didn't they tell us when they did kill hostages to thwart plans for Israel to rescue them after the ceasefire ended? Yes. There are instances where Hamas has killed hostages. That is when there was a ceasefire negotiation on the table, and Israel, during that process, tried to do another military action. The previous one had killed 250 Palestinians in a bombing campaign, if you recall, where they used ambulances, which is also a war crime, to do a security operation in coordination with the American forces in the region. Okay? And after that, they tried to do another military operation. And in the end of that military operation, Hamas, before they died, killed some of the hostages. They did. And they openly said that they did. That's my point. That is the only instance where Hamas has actually killed a hostage. Okay? That is the only instance where Hamas has killed a hostage. That's why I have maintained this position over and over again and long said that if Hamas does execute a hostage, you will know about it. They have no reason to randomly kill hostages and not actually randomly kill hostages and then just never really tell anybody about it, because it's their only point of leverage. The conditions of the hostages are also a point of leverage. Okay? Don't forget what they used, that the U.S. military shit dog at the U.S. spent. Yeah, exactly. Didn't a Hamas member kill a hostage out of retribution for his family dying, but Hamas didn't sanction it? There might have been another one, but I only remember one instance. My point is, if Hamas kills a hostage, they will, because it's their only point of leverage, they will do so publicly. Okay? That's it. And in this circumstance, all the way back in November 2023, Western media also reported that Hamas said that the Bibas family had been killed under Israeli rocket fire. And then Hamas said that they would release the bodies to Israel, and Israel refused to receive the bodies in November 2023.
Tel Aviv's hostage square. They decided not to broadcast footage from the scene. A crowd instead watching images of...
Yeah, here. Hamas's guard who killed Israeli hostage acted in revenge against group's instructions. A Hamas guard who killed... Okay, this is the other instance, I guess. But the only other time I can think of is the incident doesn't represent our ethics and the instructions of our religion in dealing with captives. We will reinforce the instructions, he added in a later message on his official Telegram channel. The Al-Qassam Brigade's Hamas arm wing posted, "Your brutality is an imminent danger to your prisoners." On Monday, when Hamas first released information about the incident, the Israeli military said it could not corroborate or refute Hamas's account. Is it confirmed as to how the hostages died? No, it's not confirmed yet. The problem here, of course, is that it's all the cards are in Israel's hands. They can say whatever the fuck they want. But the only thing we know is that all the way back in November 2023, Hamas, after another bombing campaign that was ongoing, okay, said Israel had killed its own hostages. Okay, this family was killed by an Israeli bombing campaign. Israel has killed a bunch of hostages through bombing campaigns Israel has potentially killed a bunch of Israeli hostages through gassing the tunnels. This was another thing that the parents were demanding restitution for. Some of the hostage family parents wanted additional autopsies to be conducted to actually figure out how their child had died, with the suspicion that Israel had killed them. Israel also directly shot and killed hostages, 3 of them that had actually escaped, and they had a white flag, and Israel shot them and killed them. That was another famous instance. Israel also, the IDF killed 3 Israeli hostages in Operation Nusayrat to break out Noah Argamani. Former defense minister and current war criminal Yoav Gallant openly admitted that Israel utilized the Hannibal Directive, which is an Israeli military directive that dictates that if there are hostages being taken, it's better to kill those hostages as a military directive. Yoav Gallant admitted to using this military directive on October 7 inside of Israeli boundaries. Okay, so there are plenty of deaths, and also the deaths of hostages that Israel has contributed to. Okay. The reason for why Israel has the Hannibal Directive is because they would rather kill the Israelis that are being held captive than allow them to be used as leverage. As you can see, at the 16 months of endless bombing and an ethnic cleansing campaign has not stopped the Israeli public from consistently protesting against the Netanyahu administration for refusing to come to terms on a ceasefire negotiation that will release their family members or their bodies. Okay? There are plenty of instances where Israel is like either directly shot and killed Israeli hostages or have bombed buildings where Israeli hostages were being kept. Okay?
The victims in happier times. They include Oded Lifshitz, a peace activist, and Cherie Bibas and her 2 young children, Ariel and Kafir. Images of the terrified family being taken into Gaza became a symbol of the horror of October the 7th. Shortly after the attacks, we spoke to Cherie's sister-in-law.
I'm a mother of a 1-year-old baby, and every time I lift him up, I think about the baby. She went there without diapers, without food, without pacifier, without clothes, without anything. I don't know how she's taking care of him.
The children's father, Yarden, was released alive by Hamas earlier this month. His trauma etched onto his face. The return of his family's bodies today, a moment of national mourning.
It's not just 4 people, it's more than that. It's the sense of helplessness, the fact that this country could not bring back these people alive.
For the Israeli Prime Minister, though, today was a moment to promise vengeance, even as talks on extending the ceasefire and hostage release deal are underway.
Our loved one's blood is shouting at us from the soil and is obliging us to settle the score with the despicable murderers, and we will.
In Gaza, where so much has already been destroyed, Palestinians face their own bitter homecomings. Amidst the rubble, we have to dig through this pile, he says.
What the fuck? That was weird. In and out, we're here. That was quick, calm down. It was a brief baby F, you know, always eating. Yes, at the same time every day, you will always catch me eating. Okay? I will always eat at the same time every day. Why are people still saying GG, it's over, F? I'm here. What's on the menu today? Teriyaki chicken. That's what I've been eating recently. Recently, I've been doing teriyaki chicken. I don't see you. Who made that chicken? What are you saying? Like, what is this? Do you see this? What's wrong with you guys, man? Are you okay? Normally, I used to order from a different place, and recently I've switched it up. Panda Express teriyaki chicken, cheapest 120 grams of protein in my life. Anyway, let's continue.
But we need equipment, and we don't know what to do. His sons and his wife were killed in an Israeli strike. They buried them temporarily by the house, then fled, but returned to find their home in ruins. This is the hair, he cries out. This is the shroud we buried them in. Scrabbling through the wreckage, he spots bones. What have they done to you, he asks. This ceasefire deal has brought pain as well as relief. As the first phase draws to a close, on both sides of this conflict, anxious questions. Will the remaining hostages be freed? Will the war resume?
I've never liked calling too much attention to today's date, February.
Anyway, Mitch McConnell is retiring, finally, even though he's like a million years old. One of the most successful U.S. politicians ever. It's correct. You are right. I wish you weren't right, but you are. Can you give a trigger warning before showing Mitch on screen? Yes. But before we get to Mitch, let's talk about Germany's far-right comeback from the New York Times. And then we'll get to Mitch in a second.
Needs saving, according to Elon Musk. But don't worry, we know what we are doing. And we know who we are. We are Germans. We are good at inventing long, complicated words, and we are really cool and relaxed. But of course, there's something else we Germans were really good at. Inventing Nazis. Germany may have lost 1 or 2 world wars, but we successfully turned it into a win. And we became Vergangenheitsbewältigungsweltmeister. We are world champions at confronting our history. A title we've...
I don't know if I would agree to that. I think it's not even like recent acts. I mean, every German can turn around and say, says you to me right now, because I live in America. Okay? Oh, he's not serious.
For 80 years in a row. We won this title by virtue signaling, but with a German twist. We are not just signaling virtue to others, but also to our own guilty conscience. Living in Germany means being constantly reminded of our past.
It's satire? Excuse me. I've never seen a fucking German try to do comedy before, okay? Give me a break. Literally the most autistic nation on the planet, with the exception of Japan.
Every day, 24/7, for now 80 years, we've been telling ourselves, never again. Remembrance of the Holocaust is everywhere in Germany, a country stacked with memorials. Memorials, 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 just in case we forget to never forget. Unfortunately, never again didn't come with a manual on how to never again. Our German extreme right party, the AfD, is projected to win almost every 5th vote in our national election this February. The party is called the Alternative für Deutschland, which literally means alternative for Germany. And they will probably become the 2nd largest party in German parliament, out of around half a dozen. Here is what one of the AfD's leading figures thinks of German never again.
Björn Höcke is the history teacher that's the fucking straight up Nazi. He is Pimmel.
I know it's subtle, but AfD's Björn Höcke might sound a bit Hitleresque, which is French for slightly concerning. Höcke recently won a state election in Eastern Germany, securing the first far-right win in a state election since World War II. He, by the way, can legally be called a fascist, as the German court has ruled in one case. So, should the rest of the world be worried about a big German fascist comeback? Jawohl, aber hallo, und zwar so richtig. Yes, you should be worried. Let me explain why. And since I'm German, my explanation, of course, will be pointlessly complicated and inspiringly brutal, like our traditional German bedtime stories. For instance, the one about a boy named Konrad who wouldn't stop sucking his thumbs until they were cut right off. Just for educational purposes, of course. So, the AfD...
Brothers Grimm, dude. Genuinely the most freakish shit. Yo, I swear, when you learn about German history and German culture, you understand how the Nazis happened. Also, that's the reason why I was like, Germans are incapable of making a joke. That's why I was shocked when the guy was being sarcastic and joking.
Was founded in 2013, and it primarily opposed EU policies. Then, it quickly radicalized anti-Semitism, anti-Muslim, anti-migrant, anti-establishment, and
isn't AFD also pro-Israel though?
Mainstream media. The AFD worked and works the authoritarian playbook. And now they are twisting the truth by hijacking our world-renowned, beautiful German language. Vogelschiss in der Geschichte. A speck of bird shit in German history. That's what one of the AFD's founders called Germany's Nazi past, meaning the Holocaust was just a speck of bird shit in our overall successful history. Success, of course, meaning constantly losing world wars. So far. When Elon Musk, the man who would never salute Nazis, recently interviewed AFD's chairwoman Alice Weidel on X, she gave another vibrant example on how AFD mastered blatant truth twisting.
The biggest success after that terrible era in our history was to label Adolf Hitler as right and conservative. He was exactly the opposite. He wasn't a conservative. He wasn't a libertarian. He was a communist, socialist guy.
Why not try a one?
Amazing. Yeah. Night of the Long Knives was leftist infighting. You know how the left is.
180-degree turnaround from the truth. Let's try. But these obvious little rhetorical tricks are
it's so funny because they're like holding onto a position simultaneously where they're saying like Adolf Hitler was bad because he was a socialist, but also he was misunderstood and not that bad. Great. Okay. Like, how the fuck does that make any sense?
Actually effective, thanks to one special German way to cope with our past. Geschichtsvergessenheit. Geschichtsvergessenheit means actively forgetting our, let me put it this way, ambiguous past, despite the endless memorials. Because honestly, having to confront your own history can be really, really exhausting for us Germans. But Geschichtsvergessenheit is not a concept the AfD just recently invented. In 1952, for instance, Konrad Adenauer, one of the founding fathers of our modern democratic Germany, signed a Wiedergutmachungsabkommen, a reparations agreement, yet another beautiful, accessible German word. And did you know, also a pretty common girl's name in Bavaria. Ah, there's little Wiedergutmachungsabkommen. Look at her cute blonde pigtails. Come over, Wiedergutmachungsabkommen. The Schweinebraten is ready in the oven. The Wiedergutmachungsabkommen was our post-war reparations agreement.
Bro, NetzDG is like supposed to be the anti-hate speech statute in Germany. It is so fucking difficult to say. It's like Netzwerk Boo. I have no idea how to say it. NetzDG.
With Israel, but most modern democratic Germans have conveniently forgotten Adenauer's real motives.
Insbesondere in Amerika soll man nicht unterschätzen. Und daher habe ich sehr überlegt und sehr bewusst, und das war von jeher meine Meinung, meine ganze Kraft daran gesetzt, so gut es ging, eine...
Amazing. He said the Jews are too powerful of a force to be reckoned with. That's why we had to do reparations.
Versöhnung herbeizuführen zwischen dem jüdischen Volk und dem deutschen Volk.
In other words, beware. The Jews are still powerful, even though we try to kill them all. So from now on, we better be nice to them. And then all is wieder gut again. Thank you, Konrad Adenauer. But Nazis never really went away in both Germanys. In the 2000s, a neo-Nazi terrorist group murdered at least 10 people. Their racist crimes continued for years because the German public and police could not even fathom that neo-Nazis could be responsible. Instead, they just publicly blamed immigrants for supposedly killing each other. Why are we Germans so blatantly dismissive towards the collective affection for the far right? Partly because in Germany, there's a discrepancy between collective memory and...
I'm not gonna lie, this is probably the most radical criticism of Germany that you're gonna hear, even in terms of like their commitment and allegiance to Israel. Like this, like I'm actually kind of shocked Like, I'm sure this guy is not anti-Zionist or whatever, but it's like kind of shocking that here comes the anti-Deutsche Jan Böhmermann. I suspect that he is. I suspect that he, much like every other prominent German, is probably super libbed up and super Zionist, but
and individual guilt. We acknowledge our grim past, never again, yada yada yada, but our ancestors, like personally, our families, ourselves, we had nothing to do with it whatsoever. Yes, my great-grandfather was in the Waffen-SS, but he was a cook. And the lasagna he made in Stalingrad tasted like Schuhsohlenauflauf. So basically, he tried to destroy the Waffen-SS from within. Where's his memorial? By virtue signaling to our own guilty conscience, we got rid of our Nazi past. Germans have sworn.
Does he extend this to Islamophobia? Or even like endless support to Israel too? Because he's 100% nailing the fake virtue signaling aspect of I think, as far as what I've seen, like the German collective consciousness surrounding the Holocaust and these war crimes and the atrocities during World War II, and how like modern Germany reflects on it. It's very interesting to hear a German say these sorts of things. It also does play a way, like a comfortable narrative, to claim that Islamophobia is valid, and also modern anti-Semitism does not come from the Germans, but it comes from anti-Israel sentiment, which Muslims are trafficking.
To never again so many times that it became an empty phrase. And when a new right-wing leader calls for a 180-degree turnaround on never again, we also don't take it seriously because it somehow feels empty as well. Because no matter what we do, Germans can't be Nazis again. That's the space in which the AfD operates. They can say and do Nazi things as long as they aggressively deny that anyone was ever a Nazi. It's like giving the Hitler salute in front of a large crowd of right-wing extremists while denying being a Nazi. It's a narrative that seems to be successful all over the world. We aren't Nazis, we just don't fully support liberty, equality, and the rule of law. We aren't Nazis, we just want white supremacy. The AfD is not the new Nazi party, they just want Germany to be great again. And that's why now in Germany, the Kacke is am Dampfen.
That was great. I'm shocked. But like I said, of course he's pro-Israel. What? This guy explains why there's no alt-left pipeline? Yeah, I can tell you why. Because there is no... The alt-left would be Marxists, okay? They would be Marxists. And most of their criticism revolves around economic inequality and criticizing millionaires and billionaires. Or at least the ways in which commodities are produced and the relations to the means of production and how society has been designed around making sure that the system continues. In that regard, no one who has wealth is going to turn around and fund someone saying, yeah, we should claw back all of your power and money. That's it.
Political videos for very long, and to be fair, I haven't really been alive for very long at the ripe old age of 23. I, like many of you, have been steeping in the world of online political discourse for what has felt like my entire life. I also made the grave mistake of pursuing a degree in a political social science, so luckily for me, my entire education has also revolved around various attempts to understand how politics operates in the age of the internet. And one of the most common political themes I've seen referred to in the past decade on social media is that of the alt-right pipeline. The idea is that there's a mechanism that exists on the internet which, primarily through recommendation algorithms on video sharing sites like YouTube or TikTok, captures the attention of your average Joe and slowly pushes their views further and further toward the right. Now, In academia, the alt-right pipeline term refers specifically to this algorithmic mechanism. However, I think most of us use it in a more broad way to sort of refer to the process of radicalization that can occur not just on video sharing sites, but on other social media, forums and Chan boards, and in certain offline local communities as well. And while there is a lot of media out there talking about the concept of the alt-right pipeline and how it works, I want to pose a different question today. Why is there no alt-left pipeline?
Money.
We're going to walk through a quick framework to answer that question as simply as we can, but before we do that, a quick disclaimer. This is not going to be incredibly in-depth in terms of analysis, but I do plan on expanding on some of these topics in later videos. The main goal is to answer the question without overly complicating things. So, let's get on with that. There's a pretty logical through line that we can track in order to figure out why the alt-right pipeline works, and by negation, why there couldn't be a true alt-left pipeline of a similar nature.
In the simplest terms, it's money. If you scratch the surface of that commentary a little bit, you'll recognize that it's also Red Scare propaganda and how pervasive that is. And that is precisely the same reason why you hear ostensibly leftist people constantly attacking other leftists while using right-wing terminology. The notion that socialism, for example, is a poverty cult is unironically reactionary propaganda. And yet it's not just Ben Shapiro that says that. Plenty prominent fucking liberals who are aligned with socialists on many issues, with the exception of maintaining capitalism, will actively utilize that. Anarchists will actively also say, well, you know what? You're right, actually. It's ridiculous. You could not be fucking successful in any way, shape, or form. You are basically taking advantage of the system. That's all you're doing, and you're doing it for personal benefit. Nobody, for some reason, ever turns around and thinks, well, if someone is a grifter, let's say someone is a prominent left-wing commentator, if they're a grifter, why wouldn't they grift to the right? The right is a captive market. There's plenty of people that just simply want their own idiotic worldview regurgitated back to them. You don't have to be particularly charismatic to be a right-wing commentator. You don't even need to take a shower frequently to be a right-wing commentator. So why is it, if it's that much simpler and much more fortuitous to be a right-wing commentator, why the fuck would anybody grift to the left? Why would anybody do that? The answer is nobody does that. That's why when people are grifting, they grift to the fucking right. That's why so many prominent leftist figures will either organically or due to the grift, slowly but surely move to the right. It's idiotic.
First, we need to sort out what the goal of a radicalization pipeline is. In my understanding, its goal is to capture the attention of one who is relatively disinterested in politics, the majority of people, and not only make them interested in politics, but eventually interested in radical politics and political activism in favor of the community that radicalized them. Since I'm American, I'm going to use our political parties in history for the rest of this video, but I think the ideas are relatively sound when used in other contexts. The most important component in the modern alt-right pipeline, in my opinion, is the media ecosystem that the Republican Party has been building since the 1990s. I could go on for hours about this one, but I will spare you that for now. All we need to know is that back in the early 1900s, there was a large public distrust in Republican economic policy after the Great Depression. This caused the Republican Party to more closely align itself with the Democrats, not just in economic policy, but later in other social policy efforts as well.
We're post-Reagan, we're living in the reverse of the FDR momentum. Well, not even post-Reagan, post-Nixon, I would say. Like, the Nixon era basically completely flipped it. And it's gotten worse and worse year over year, and Reagan was the apex. But up until Nixon, the attitude was always the same. Imagine decades of the Republican Party operating in the same exact way that the Democratic Party is operating, where they constantly have to capitulate to the New Deal Democrats and their unimaginably popular agenda. Think about that. Another reason why the left will never succeed in anything is because of this. Hi, Hassan. This may be unimportant, but have you considered getting reusable chopsticks? They have some nice ones at IKEA. I love you, by the way. Obviously, this person is being kind. They're not making a big deal out of it. not realizing that I am technically reusing chopsticks that they've sent me. Instead of throwing it out, I'm just using the chopsticks that they sent me. And also, I do have reusable chopsticks on top of that. But of course, normally this kind of marginal disagreement can become a major problem in the left. I'm using this chatter as a talking point here, not saying this chatter is engaging in that, but oftentimes these sorts of minor disagreements on the left will lead to genuine infighting for no fucking reason whatsoever. I was just sitting on the chatter.
Alignment between the two parties is what eventually allowed for the New Deal era to occur, since both parties agreed on a general direction for the country, only disagreeing on how to implement certain policies, for the most part. And as we well know, in regards to most social movements, each surge in a certain ideology is met with an opposing reaction, and this is effectively what allowed Ronald Reagan to take the presidency in 1980. What is important to understand at this point is that the strategy of the Republican Party began to shift. They noticed that their conservative policy proposals were relatively unpopular amongst the general public, especially in states required to win elections. If they could instead create a system where politics was more about culture than actual policies, they could attempt to convince Americans that
The number one guy in the modern era for this is also Newt Gingrich, the guy who basically turned this into a science. Not to say that there wasn't culture war issues in the Nixon era or the Reagan era. Of course there were, but Newt Gingrich definitely supercharged this. I would say that he was a pivotal figurehead. The other pivotal figure in terms of like modern Republican Party strategy, aside from like the Dick Cheneys of the world and yada yada yada, I think was certainly Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell is when the Republican Party learned the lesson that if they do perma-obstructionism to a democratic administration, they will literally suffer zero repercussions. And actually, as a matter of fact, they'll benefit from it tremendously. And everyone will blame the admin for it.
that they were the right choice to pick because they were the more patriotic or constitutional or working class party, despite there being a clear dissonance between those phrases and their actual policy proposals. And this is where the media ecosystem comes in. In the 1990s, the Republican Party and its donors began to invest a significant amount of funds and resources into building a widespread media apparatus with the goal of uniting the many small conservative coalitions throughout the country.
It's pretty funny because Felix literally did a reading series on Chapo on just this. Like this video, the 13-minute summary of this video is something that Felix did on Chapo, the media operations of the Republican Party, the contemporary Republican Party, and its evolution. It's called Seeking a Friend, F-R-E-N. It's fantastic.
Under a single narrative. The idea was to convince anyone from business owners to evangelicals to even your average dissatisfied American that the establishment Democrats were coming to destroy the very fabric of the United States and that the small town Republicans were going to stop them, so long as you donate to them and vote for them. This media narrative also consisted of broad moral panics, reimaginings of American history, and an oddly postmodern skepticism and pessimism not only about the Democrats, but also any Republicans that might sympathize with their causes. And this narrative caught on like wildfire, whether it be on AM radio with Rush Limbaugh or cable news with Sean Hannity and the Fox News crew, and it served as the foundation for the Republican strategy on how to win elections. If you can't make people vote for your party, make them vote against the other. Let's move on to the second point. These conservative narratives, like blaming economic instability solely on immigration or claiming that the LGBT community is corrupting children, bigotry in general toward any non-straight cisgender white male group, they generate fear. And let me be clear, both parties attempt to play into these narratives to try and win elections. However, it is important to note that there are multiple studies, which I've linked in the description, that show that individuals with conservative policy leanings are also more likely to focus on negative narratives and to have increased sensitivity to perceived threats. In that context, it makes sense why both parties try to use these narratives to win elections. Republicans need to activate every conservative that they can, and Democrats want to win on the margins by flipping center-right Republican voters. Both parties engaging with negative, fearful narratives is also great for the alt-right pipeline because fear makes people want to protect themselves and the things they love. And alt-right ideals are broadly centered around hatred toward outgroups, ultra-conservative social policies, and isolationism and nationalism, all of which...
Thank you for fighting the good fight, brave chatter. The Democratic Party's approval ratings will certainly go up after this. I can't think of anyone more out of touch than a guy who looks at like a 72% disapproval rating within the Democratic Party and turns around and goes, is this group of the people who didn't vote for the Democrats? First of all, like more than 80% of this community voted for the Democrats. Okay? But I like that you made a sock account to imagine a thing that didn't happen, to go and yell about perceived grievances instead of yelling at your party to fucking go out and, do some goddamn work so that they can restore some confidence from the American population that recognizes that the Dems are inherently hostile to them and their existence. But no, you are unfortunately a small-minded person, a sucker, a mark, a rube. You go and yell at voters who are like-minded, have the same class interests as you do, instead of recognizing that if the Democratic Party had actually followed through on any sort of commitment to materially improve the lives, like real commitments, not marginal, tax cuts for small businesses type shit, broad, sweeping change, radical change that clearly the people were demanding, that they probably would have been able to defeat Donald Trump. And no, this is not an honest question. You are a dishonest person. You're a dishonest person for multiple different reasons, okay? You're dishonest because you assume that this community didn't vote against Donald Trump. You're also dishonest because you think the uncommitted Democratic voter base, hangout space, is filled to the brim with cucks that didn't vote. You're dishonest because you and I are fundamentally at odds with the way that we see the world. I believe in democracy, which means you are supposed to extract concessions from your elected representatives. You don't. You just think that the Democratic Party must win unconditionally at all costs. And I understand where that comes from, because clearly Donald Trump is worse, right? You keep saying the data is there. Well, if you understood anything about the data, you would recognize that third-party voters or the uncommitted voters were not the reason why Kamala Harris lost. And that even if all third-party voters actually voted for Kamala Harris, which, by the way, again, don't know why that's a thing, Kamala Harris still would have lost to Donald Trump. That's how bad of a campaign she ran. You're also in one of the few communities that opens its doors to liberals that actively complained about the many mistakes that the Kamala Harris campaign was making. Mistakes that did predictably lead to a defeat. If the Democrats truly were terrified of the growing fascist movement in this country, I suspect they wouldn't have ran a campaign alongside Liz Cheney, talking about having the most lethal military, talking about how they're going to be the deportation party and the Republicans are not good enough at deporting people. All of that only ends up legitimizing the right-wing position, and it makes Democrats look like fucking hypocrites who are now coming to that same conclusion, that undocumented migrants are responsible for crimes. In terms of the genocide is unconscionable. This is all rhetoric. I'm talking about data. I don't think you understand the lesson that data is supposed to tell you. A YouGov poll revealed that among the 19 million people who voted for Joe Biden in 2020 but did not vote, nearly 29% cited the U.S.-backed war in Gaza as their top reason for staying home. Do you think that's rhetoric? Do you think that's data? Yeah, I mean, it's data, but I don't think you're interpreting the data correctly. That means that the Biden administration fucked up spectacularly because they were so horny to murder as many Palestinian children as they possibly could that they literally gave the country on a silver platter to a fucking fascist movement instead of, God forbid, doing the fucking right thing and taking a strong moral opposition to genocide. Shut the fuck up, dumbass. How do you look at that and go, oh, this means that like people are fucking stupid and they should have voted for Joe Biden? You are a moron. Okay? God damn. It's so hard to consistently be fucking charitable to stupid fucking liberals. Jesus, Lord mercy, dude. I don't understand. You got everything you wanted. Joe Biden maintained the genocide, and Trump is going to maximize on the genocide. He's going to do even more of it. Okay, not many people are insane. I'm not insane. You just showed me data that unironically proves that if you fucking were committed to being an anti-fascist, you would have actually changed trajectory on Israel, okay? And you're looking at that and still blaming the fucking voters for a genocide. You literally have to be the stupidest fucking person I've ever encountered in my entire goddamn life. Holy fuck, bro, you're a poser. Oh my God. I'm looking at what Trump is planning on doing. Yes. Oh my God. I can't believe Donald Trump has talked about how he wants to ethnically displace all Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. Oh, wait. Fucking Joe Biden also quietly demanded that happen. So the difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden in this regard, by the way, is the fact that Joe Biden supplied the weapons and also tried to negotiate that position, which obviously the other countries were like, fuck no, we're not going to do that. That's ethnic cleansing. Okay. And Donald Trump was just saying the quiet part out loud, using rhetoric to get viewers. Or perhaps this unimaginably unpopular position in any kind of moneyed circle, okay, in any kind of marketing initiative that immediately demands that executives come down your fucking throat and censor you, is a position that I genuinely maintain, an anti-genocide position, okay? I don't know if you're familiar with this, but you are talking to a community that didn't even refuse to vote for Kamala Harris. But you have invented that because you need demons to attack, not realizing the real demons are the fucking Republicans and the Democrats who are caving and capitulating to them. In the process, you quite literally have pointed to evidence that suggests that if Biden had actually done the morally correct thing, okay, put an end to the fucking genocide that he was defending, that the Democrats probably could have won. But none of that matters because you are a fucking moron. And you will never learn your fucking lesson. You will consistently keep defending the Democrats, no matter what it is, playing catch up over and over and over again. That's why it's because of your entitled, smug, elitist, unconditionally pro-Democratic Party attitude at a time when the Republican Party is absolutely fucking gutting all of our federal institutions. Any semblance of like the regulatory body is cast aside. Mass layoffs, economic collapse that's imminent, America changing its strategy in general when it comes to foreign policy and becoming even more aggressive. People despise you and your kind, okay? They despise you. They despise the Democratic Party dick riders. Do you understand? That's why the Democratic Party currently is at a fucking 72% disapproval rating because you're too busy turning around and yelling at other people, yelling at your fucking potential allies. Because you are a fucking baboon, okay? You are dumb as fuck. You are, in many respects, no different than the dumbass Republican who voted for the fucking Trump administration thinking, oh yeah, hell yeah, brother. We're actually going to fucking save America. Hell yeah. We're going to save America by making sure egg prices are $25 a carton. The only difference is you're a little bit better read and possibly gay. That's it. You're just a fucking gay Republican. That's all this is. Smug, gay, Republican. That's what the liberal institutional defenders are now. And it's unimaginably annoying. You're burning the candle from both ends at that point. You have nothing salvageable. Holy shit. Nobody likes you, chatter. And this is why. It's so funny because the Democrats did an endless wave of unimaginable concessions to the right and they still lost. And these fucking morons are still complaining at the left. God damn, dude. I'm going to die on this hill, but saying blanket rhetoric is ironic. This is a rhetorical nothing burger. It's just evident smug.
Can be fostered by the repetition and installation of fear. Leftist ideals, however, broadly advocate for community-focused solutions that are inclusive and perhaps most importantly, new or progressive. That's why the left can't necessarily utilize fear. While the right's goal is to protect itself against perceived threats, the left's goal is to overcome obstacles of fear, to incorporate and advocate alongside groups that are marginalized and exploited by neoconservative capitalism. capitalism. Instilling fear would mean to shift the blame onto someone else. Leftist movements seek to take responsibility and first create change from the inside. Fear, in the way that conservatives utilize it, is incompatible with these goals, and in the modern media landscape means that leftist ideals are less likely to spread in the public consciousness than conservative ideals. Now the third point. Young people have a lot of problems going on all the time. That's kind of what being young is about. However, for the sake of this video, we have to look at what kinds of problems would cause someone to become susceptible to the siren's call of a radicalization pipeline. In Innuendo Studios' alt-right playbook, the accumulation of problems that lead someone into a pipeline is called soul sickness. This sickness can be brought on by many things, but perhaps most importantly are trauma and isolation, especially amongst men. And to be clear, this isn't me doing a feel bad for all white men because they're racist bit, but just hear me out. Folks that have had traumatic or life-changing events occur to them are...
Is fear really incompatible? Like, can't we just outgroup billionaires? I mean, it's gonna be hard to do that in a society that's designed to proselytize and showcase billionaires as like incredible deities, because the entire system is built around the false notion of meritocracy. So those guys are basically gods living amongst us. Gods that are also achievable in class status, which is, of course, also not true, but it doesn't really matter. I have a buddy who is a good dude, unapologetically pro-Dem. We were chatting today. He was blown away that Gaza was a major issue for me. I think how out of touch they are with the cruelty that was happening under the Dems was such a big reason why they lost. Yeah. I think that I mean, if you're unconditionally pro-Democrat, you probably got to that position because you consume a lot of like New York Times, you consume a lot of CNN, maybe some MSNBC, or David Pacman if you're looking at like independent media, right? Or Brian Tyler Cohen. And I'm not even shitting on Brian or David, okay? They're very nice people, but if that's the only group that you're looking at, if that's the only, like, you can isolate yourself from alternative visions if you hyper focus on only like the positive aspects of the Democratic Party, and you will design a world that is just utterly untrue. That's why a lot of people felt confused after the Harris loss. Yeah. There is not a lot of, there's nothing that goes beyond partisan politics when if you're doing mostly partisan politics, you're going to miss out on the larger picture, I think. Is what you're doing moral? What do you mean? What? What are you saying? Hey, Hassan Doan Piker, you can keep teaching us about things, but who can we rally behind? Or do I really have to tuck my tail in between my legs and find DSA chapters that might know who John Brown is? What I'm learning is Hassan is more anarchist because they don't ever put their neck out for you. They just facilitate it. Communists do, anarchists don't. Yes, dude. Yes, yes. Your mental health episode that you're going through right now is helping you arrive at the correct truth, which is that I'm not sticking my neck out at all, and I'm just trying to get all of the Marxist-Leninists to fight the battles for me. Thank you. You're right. I am definitely your enemy, okay? How do you arrive at such a cynical fucking worldview, dude? I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, what is it? You want me to fucking I'll just go buy out a compound, okay? Purchase as many AK-47s as possible and bunker myself in there with some fucking Tenorite and die for the Marxist-Leninist cause in a country that thinks Nancy Pelosi is a socialist, dude. The fuck? But I'll be based! Write a book and these people will calm down? No, because then it's still not radical enough, okay? One must ask themselves why liberal naysayers and Republicans and even fucking leftists have this exact same position. I'm going to be as charitable as possible and say that leftists arrive at this position because of the helplessness that they feel, the hopelessness that they feel, and that they recognize the harms that are happening, but don't understand the existing material conditions, don't understand what level of class consciousness does exist amongst the working class, because billionaires, capital owners always have had class consciousness, okay? But plenty of leftists, okay, card-carrying Marxist, Leninists, and whatnot, also fall into this trap because they get geared by liberals and reactionary Republicans alike, because that is how pervasive the Red Scare propaganda is in this country. This is also precisely the reason why I have so much respect for the likes of Bernie Sanders, okay? Because in spite of my disagreements with him on key issues, it still does not matter, because he has been able to, at the very least, utilize the bully pulpit in an election to generate more open-mindedness among a nation that is inherently hostile to socialism. Okay?
Most likely to become susceptible to these right-wing narratives as they...
Ironically, though, this is another problem with the broader left in general. People also fall into that same, like, this person is hypocritical, the same cynical assessment that right-wingers who don't even agree with your worldview routinely weaponize. Okay? That's it. It is, in my estimation, a testament to how pervasive anti-socialist thought is in this country.
They not only provide an outlet for anger and a community to fill in those support roles that might have otherwise been lost through their trauma, but also a series of common enemies to direct that anger toward as a community. This is why, anecdotally, divorced dads and young lonely men are the most likely to fall into these pipelines, since modern conservative social standards isolate and generally prevent men from expressing camaraderie or brotherly love for each other. Those pesky leftist community-oriented vibes are not at all what these folks are looking for. Often, they feel victimized by the state or by their ex-wives or their classmates or whoever else, and they just want a place to direct that anger. Rarely do they ever want a solution to it. Their problems are just a given to them. On to the fourth point. Any given person that feels vaguely victimized then is a lot more likely to pay attention to the more surface level commentators on the right, because they broadly speak to that person's worsening material conditions without getting too in the weeds about actual politics. In the 90s, this character was played by Limbaugh, Hannity, Buchanan, and Fox News in general, and nowadays it's Elon Musk, Jordan Peterson, Dave Rubin, and Ben Shapiro, just to name a few. The left simply does not have the same game. The Democratic Party funds liberal news outlets and commentators, not leftist commentators. So the only place folks are able to be introduced to leftist commentary is, what, on BreadTube? I love PhilosophyTube and ContraPoints, of course, but they're just unable to meet the vast majority of people where
I'm not going to lie. I suspect this person is not too fond of me, judging by
they are, especially if those people are dissatisfied with what they perceive as culture war persecution against them. The Republican Party has bet its entire future on meeting these people, straight men and their wives, where they are, and not just slowly pushing them positively toward the right, but negatively away from anything perceived as leftist. And the last point. This funneling of regular Joes into rival political teams has created an environment in which parties seeps into our personal identities and our identities into our parties. The process of this occurring is one of a few forms of political polarization, and in a politically polarized country, the average person becomes significantly more anxious regarding political outcomes, and guess which party created a whole media ecosystem to take advantage of this anxiety? It's actually both parties, but the Democrats' media ecosystem is also primed against leftists, since leftist positions are too extreme to advocate for, which is also not the best hill for the Democrats to die on, because, to cite a recent example, some of Kamala Harris's most successful campaign promises during her 2024 election were her pledge to prevent grocery price gouging.
Okay, maybe he is a fan. I don't know.
Her plan to have a 25% income tax for billionaires, and the strengthening of collective bargaining laws for unions, all of which polled with over 60% favorability amongst the general electorate, and all of which are leftist policy proposals, which she quickly abandoned due to her party's priming against leftists and their policies.
Well, it's not even priming against the parties, priming against the leftists and their policies. It was because the Democratic Party is directly... the Democratic Party has the same corporate benefactors that the Republicans do by their class position. They might have some disagreements in terms of like social policy or whatever, But ultimately, they have the exact same corporate benefactors. Tony West, who is the legal counsel for Uber, is Kamala Harris's brother-in-law, and he was the one who, according to reporting on the matter, directly approached Kamala Harris to say, don't do this like anti-billionaire populist stuff. There were also major boosters of the Dem Party that actively wanted, Lena Khan gone. Like, they were open about it. They kept saying that they wanted that, which is completely unacceptable.
All right, let's wrap this all up into one tight bow and send you on your way. There is no alt-left pipeline because a political radicalization pipeline requires a few things to begin. Charismatic voices with massive investments from deep political pockets, subtly stoking the flames of fear en masse and in the public sphere. The Republican Party specifically engineered the right-wing media apparatus to do these things, and there are no equivalent voices on the left, no deep leftist pockets to invest in the potential voices that there may be, and perhaps most importantly, no additional fear generated by the community-focused ideals of leftist politics. Even if fear is generated by the left, as we saw earlier, that fear will make someone more likely to adopt conservative policy preferences. And this is why your average dissatisfied American won't fall down a pipeline to the alt-left, and is also perhaps why the left should attempt to increase organizational efforts rather than attempting to go high by meeting the right in the marketplace of ideas. Because the very fabric of the...
I 100% agree with these. I agree with this statement. I do. That's why I focus a lot of my efforts on beefing up organizing efforts. Like, that's why I have so much of a focus on protecting labor unions and pushing for unionization. What is this? Oh, never mind. Maybe he is a fan. Okay. Bro bought a mansion and says he's a communist. Lol. Didn't he buy to live with his family? No, he literally kicked his mother out on the streets. Now she's homeless. I think there may be an alt-left pipeline now, though. It may be more center-leaning than we think an alt-left might be. What do you mean? No matter what happens, it will never resemble the same alt-right pipeline because right-wing content creators are almost always funded by insanely wealthy billionaires and millionaires who understand the importance of divisive propaganda.
The marketplace is stacked against them. And that's it for this lovely political video.
Anyway, now, speaking of being the alt-left pipeline guy, I am going to be talking to Chris Dols of the Union of Federal Workers. I don't know if he's in here right now. Hold on. Hello? Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, and I can hear you. This is perfect. No production issues whatsoever. Chris, how would you like me to refer to you? How would you describe who you are and what you do to my audience?
Yeah, I'm a few things. I'm the president of my local, IFPT Local 98. I'm one of the national, I'm a member of the National Steering Committee of the FUN, the Federal Unionist Network. And as a federal worker, I work at the Army Corps of Engineers, but I have to be careful to disclaim that. Nothing I say is necessarily the views of the Army Corps of Engineers.
Got it. All right, Chris, I wish I could have you here on better circumstances, but unfortunately, there's a lot of issues going on, specifically with mass layoffs. So without further ado, once again, thank you so much for coming on, but let's talk about it. You've been doing some of the rounds in the media and talking about some of these issues, but what is your assessment on what's happening right now with the Trump administration as they basically dismantle the federal government and actively lay off tens of thousands of workers?
Yeah, I mean, it's totally surreal. I happen to be, in a position to not only see it up close because I'm a federal worker, but I spent the last few years trying to strengthen the federal labor movement with a lot of other people. It's the one source of hope I have is the people that I work with and have been working with for the last few years in what we call the FUN, which I joke was named in less serious times. 2 years ago, we started the Federal Unionist Network just to try to build some pressure on Chuck Schumer to get Joe Biden's nominees to the Federal Labor Relations Authority passed. But little did we know we were actually laying the groundwork for and preparing for, I don't think it can be overstated, a totally historic assault on, I don't want to sound too much like a lib, but the democracy itself. It's funny, a year ago they were warning about the assault on democracy, and now those same people are some of the most quiet and paralyzed by the moment. But the truth is, the attack on the civil service, the attack on all of the services that our government provides, really does constitute an attack on democracy, and it really can't be overstated. So yeah, that's how I see it. There's a lot to say about what we're doing to try to fight it, but unfortunately we're starting a little later than I'd like to have, but here we are.
So there was a National Day of Action yesterday, and could you quickly go over what some of your demands were and what you guys did?
Yeah. So the Day of Action was called less than 2 weeks ago. We just, within a week of the inauguration, it became very clear that he was going to go even harder and faster than anybody really expected. And so we, being a relatively small formation, growing really quickly, we made the call to organize a Day of Action, something we've never done. The fund has done some like webinars. We've done educational stuff for each other. The network originated as a bunch of us local officers. I'm the president of my local, a bunch of us presidents who are kind of frustrated with the state of the labor movement had started working together. But in the last few weeks, we realized even though we're small, even though we don't have, the depth or the resources that we'd like to have right now, somebody had to take a stand. And we figured that if we did, maybe we could attract towards us the federal workers who are looking for how to get involved in the fight, but also the broader public sympathies that we're looking for some organization to direct it towards. And I think we were right on both counts. I mean, there's been a huge influx of support, not only from the broader public, but most importantly to me, federal workers are coming towards us in droves. And so the Day of Action was themed around the slogan SOS, right? The save our services, but SOS being obviously a distress signal to the broader public. Because, while they're framing it, right, Elon Musk is framing it as efficiency and fixing the federal workforce. Really, it has little to nothing to do with that. It's about attacking the services that protect the public from predatory lenders. And, it's about protecting the socialized healthcare that veterans benefit from, the Veterans Administration, so many services, protecting our environment. They're really going after the entire regulatory state and anything that stands in the way of their pursuit of more profit. And the Day of Action was really successful. I think there were 35 or 40 cities where we had actions. Some of them, like in New York, where I am, were really big. We had more than 1,000 people last night with a bunch of electeds. And I think it was the first necessary escalatory step as we build towards what will be the necessary forces to actually stop them, which ultimately is going to have to be a lot of power we build. And we're looking to the broader public sector labor movement and the broader labor movement. The broader public really, I think, has to step into the streets with us if we're going to be able to stop them.
Yeah. Can you go over at least some of the anecdotes that you have in terms of like what kind of immediate issues will arise from federal workers being laid off in this unceremonious manner, in a very swift manner?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think we're just seeing the beginning of it, right? They're going after the easiest targets, the probationary targets. There's little to no regulatory requirement for justifying the termination of a probationary employee. Although some of us do have some experience in fighting probationary terminations. It's not totally hopeless.
What is a probationary employee for the
So-
people that might not know?
Yeah. The first year of anyone's federal employment, sometimes it's 2 years, depends on when you were hired, which agency. But the point is, the first year typically of your employment in the federal government, you are probationary. And what that means is your boss can fire you for any reason in that first year. Now, they are required to state what that reason is, and that reason has to be based in some fact. I say that because the basis of these mass probationary terminations are likely counter to those regulations. But a probationary employee is basically anybody who's new enough that management reserves the right to fire you. And it's important, like when you hit that 366th day and you're done with your 1 year, now a bunch more protections kick in that you didn't have otherwise. It's worth noting that most probationary, well, I don't know about most, but a lot of probationary employees are not early career. Some are, of course, but many are extremely high value, experienced folks who came out of the private sector, or maybe some other public sector service. I spent 7.5 years working as a dredger. I worked for a dredging contractor. And I got hired by the Army Corps of Engineers because I carried a ton of dredging subject matter expertise. So there's this idea that, oh, they're just letting off the most, inexperienced people. And it's just really not true.
Someone in the chat saying probationary employees are not at will, and there is some confusion on that. So they can still be fired, or at least like obviously the mass layoffs imply that there wasn't automatically a performance-based reason for their firing, which is what they were saying they were firing all the probationary employees for, right? But what are the odds in terms of virtually every single probationary employee having performance complications, right? So that there is this still is illegal, I suspect.
Totally. I mean, the regs say, and I only know this because we're in the middle of a fight for a probationary termination earlier this year, where the supervisor terminated the employee, and everything they asserted in the letter of termination was just not true. And so as we dug into it and I consulted the lawyers, what we realized was, well, the regulations require, and I think this is government wide, it might just be to those of us in the Department of Defense, but basically requires that there must be a reason. And implicit is that reason must be based in fact. So if the assertion is that it's a performance problem, but a recent performance evaluation and all available records indicate that this person did not have any performance problems, then they've been terminated for a false reason. And on those grounds can be disputed. So it's not actually an interesting anecdote. Last night, actually, if folks happen to, I have a feeling your viewership probably doesn't overlap a ton with MSNBC. But if anybody caught the interview I did on MSNBC last night, the guy I was with had just been terminated like 2 days ago now. And what he described was he and everybody else who was terminated, all the probationary employees who were terminated he worked at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB. And he and all of his fellow probationary employees got the same exact email, and they didn't do the mail merger right.
What are the odds?
Exactly. They all had exactly the same performance problems, but they didn't do the mail merger right. So it said like, dear first name, last name, literally said dear first name, last name, and then proceeded to explain how your performance indicates that we have to let you go or whatever. I mean, it's very clearly not the spirit of probationary. Probation is supposed to be a time to assess whether or not this person is right for federal service, and that's clearly not what they're doing.
Can we briefly talk about one of the other like existing long-term issues that virtually exist in all private and public sector jobs in general, which is the problem with understaffing? At least in my experience covering labor issues with regular frequency, one of the things that most people actually strike over is understaffing, and the nurses union immediately comes to mind. Like, so consistently, no matter where they are in the world, even under the National Healthcare Service in the UK or many different private networks here in the United States of America, nurses are constantly understandably complaining about understaffing. And I feel like this is a problem that persists in the federal regulatory agencies in the federal government as well. So mass layoffs of probationary workers across the board is obviously not only technically not legal, but also is coming at a time when we need more workers, not less. So this is one of the very foreseeable problems, I think, that the Trump administration is bringing about. You have planes falling out of the sky. You have air traffic control towers that are understaffed. You got 3 guys sometimes doing the work of 10 people or even 30 people, and they're not going to be able to produce the same work. And I think regulation and safety related issues especially require everyone in the workforce to be both competent and not overexploited for this reason. So what do you suspect will happen in terms of these mass layoffs at a time when the federal government needs more workers, not less?
I mean, first, just to confirm, the whole federal government, I can speak best, of course, to my experience, at the Army Corps, but the whole federal government is understaffed. I mean, so much work. I mean, it's crazy how much we do. Just like I work at the New York district of the Army Corps, we do all this military construction support for the different arsenals, West Point, all these different, military bases in the region, but also, all the flood walls and levees, their initial construction and maintenance, and there's a bunch of studies that we do around like protecting against future Hurricane Sandy type events. Like the program is massive. I think it was pushing $1 billion per year just this last year. And our workforce is like, it's probably down to 500 now. We were already having a staffing problem because the labor market's been tight. So you're totally right about the premise that we're understaffed as is. But what's the effect? And I think they know it. They don't have a problem with exacerbating the staffing crisis because that's precisely what they're going to use to further privatize all of the services that we provide. And you'd think about an agency like mine, which historically isn't primarily a contracting agency that contracts everything out. The Army Corps of Engineers, does its own engineering and designing and architecture. And we used to do much more of our own construction. The last decades of neoliberal privatization has corresponded with a lot of the offloading of what was previously considered, what's the term, like inherently governmental work. Like the definition of inherently governmental has been getting trimmed up. And now they're trying to collapse us. And I'm sure their goal is to make us exclusively a contracting agency where like project management functions, planning, engineering, like all of it, they want to give out to these big AE firms. And you can figure all the corollaries at NASA in the ways that companies like SpaceX are going to benefit from understaffing turned into privatization. They'll justify the privatization on the basis of the understaffing that they created by firing all the probationary terminations and all that.
What are I feel like this also has a self-defeating cycle as well, because the less competent the government seems, the easier it is for people to advocate for more tax cuts because they just simply don't see any of the benefits. Many of the benefits are obviously invisible in general, but I mean, this is one of those aspects that's like very much a necessity. Like building a dam or a levee, I think that's it. That's like the maintaining it is probably one of the most important things you can do. So where do you see all of this going? I guess.
Yeah, no, it's such a good point. One of my main collaborators in the Federal Unionist Network made this point last week on one of the interviews she did, which is like our work is vindicated precisely by its invisibility. It's the fact that you didn't get sick from that water you drank and that food that you ate and the air that you breathed and the flood that didn't happen. It's the absence of news stories that vindicates the work that we do. And so it's going to be really important that we get good at messaging these next few weeks and months, because the attack is only going to continue, right? They're starting with probationary hires. They're going to pursue much deeper cuts.
Yeah.
And I think what we have to remind folks is, and really ask folks, like, I think everybody has an obligation to look at where the things that they benefit from come from. So if a member of your family has a home health aide, chances are that service is one way or another subsidized by federal dollars. If your kid's class size is kept under a certain unreasonable threshold, 30 or 25 or whatever's the standards now, that's informed by money subsidized through the Department of Education to local cities and states. I think we obviously, as federal workers, I can describe how what I do matters. And, the news stories that don't happen because dredging happens, the entire economy depends on keeping, sediment from accruing in the shipping channels that allow goods to come in and out of all the ports, right? I can describe. I think we need the broader public who supports us, who sees the crisis, to help us share the narrative and be like, whether it's the healthcare that you as a veteran receive, which is like some of the best socialized. People always talk about how, Canada or Europe, they've got such great socialized healthcare, as if we don't have one of the best socialized healthcare systems in the world. Granted, it's not for the entire population, but veterans receive some of the best healthcare in the world, and it's totally socialized, and the right sees it as this ripe fruit for picking apart and, making for profit.
Yeah,
like the rest of us. So,
they've actively tried to dismantle VA and also privatize it, and have seen some success in recent years in terms of privatization. A big problem with the VA, however, is that its pool of people that are in the VA are unlike any other healthcare pool at all. It's constantly growing, and also virtually every single person needs it. Like, they need higher level care than the average person that you can normally hedge against. As that's just how insurance works. You have everyone buy into it, and the healthy are supposed to subsidize those who desperately need it. Of course, there would be no need for a VA if we had universal health care.
Exactly.
But yes, Republicans are also actively, and some Democrats even are actively working to dismantle the VA and privatize that as well. So I guess one last question, and thank you so much for coming on and taking the time out of your day. One last question I have is what would you rate the Democratic Party right now and their competence against all the things that are happening? Do you feel like they're mounting any defense whatsoever, or even a significant one?
I mean, I think the answer is pretty clearly no, not yet. But I think it's important to say not yet. I don't want to, you know, we need them to get off their asses. The first one, for all the media stuff I've done, and I'm an engineer, and yeah, I'm a union leader, so I have some experience doing public stuff a little bit. But like, this is unprecedented, right? I mean, the first media thing I did was with an interview at somebody at the New York Times asked me a bunch of questions, and the one piece that they kept was that I'm a constituent of Hakeem Jeffries. I live in Brooklyn, and Hakeem Jeffries is my rep, and he had just like a couple days prior did that thing where he physically threw his hands in the air, but he basically figuratively threw his hands in the air and said, "It's their government. There's nothing we can do." And I think that's been the lead. The paralysis that you see in the Democratic Party has been set from its leadership. And so for them, I think we have to give them a big fat F for their conduct so far. Obviously, there are some great exceptions. I mean, Rashida Tlaib came out to the Federal Unionist Network indoor rally we did at Busboys and Poets in DC last week. AOC came out last night to the rally we did. So like the left, the squad are showing up. And the thing is, we're not going to win if it's just them. We're going to have to figure out others. And there are some other more, liberal, mainstream Dems. I mean, Pritzker, like, I can't believe I'm going to say anything good about Pritzker, but like, governor of Illinois declaring like the severity of the crisis at the moment. Like, yeah, we need people to we need them to move beyond the rhetoric, though. For those who aren't even reaching the rhetoric, we need them to find it. And for those who are, willing to throw around the rhetoric, we're going to need them to actually embolden, forces into the streets. I mean, we are putting out a call. The SOS distress signal is targeted at the public, but with a strategic focus on public sector unions. So our hope is that political leaders, but perhaps most importantly, union leaders who have a relatively recent history of militancy at the public level, at the city and state level of public unions, we need them to, remember that muscle memory and be willing to go back out into the streets, jointly with us as federal workers. And, Trump and Musk, they know they're creating a political crisis. They think they can manage it. Our job, the labor movement's job, is to make it unmanageable. And I think that's only going to happen through unprecedented political mobilizations. And if ever there was a time for it, it's now. And yeah, that's what we're hoping to inspire over the weeks and months ahead.
And what can members of my community do to help in this struggle?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. The comms folks wouldn't let me live it down if I didn't say it. A few things. One is, if you're a federal worker, which some of your listeners may be.
Oh no, there's plenty.
Yeah, join the fund. The Federal Unionist Network is for you, ultimately. I mean, obviously we have a broader mission right now, but we get our power, our strength from the federal workforce that's coming into our ranks. And I'll say it a couple times. The website for everybody to go to is go.savepublicservices.com. If you're a federal worker, there's a box to check to say you are, and we'll follow up to learn more details, what your union is, all that stuff. But so for federal workers, join the fund, get involved. If you're not a member of your union, obviously join it. If you don't have a union, you can form one. In fact, we're working really closely. You may know EWOC The Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee, one of the most important formations of the last few years. They do new organizing, and FUN and EWOC are teamed up now to help organize new federal unions because, you know, despite that we are high density in the federal sector, there's still hundreds of thousands of union eligible folks who don't have a union. If you're not a federal worker, you could still help, I think, by sharing your stories. And like I said before, understand like you and your community, how you benefit from federal services and find any opportunity to share that. Because I think the invisibility of the federal services is part of our problem. We need everybody to help reshape the narrative about how federal service actually connects, you know, whether it's labor rights that are protected by the NLRA or it's environmental protections that are upheld by the Environmental Protection Agency. Those are important. I gave the URL. I'll give it again, go.savepublicservices.com. And, you know, the regular stuff around contacting your representatives, I think it's still important, and perhaps it's more important. As somebody who generally like has put their political attention to the union work and building a strong union, and I've always kind of like, sure, contact your representatives too. Now it actually feels like we can make a difference in the political calculus of elected representatives because the crisis is so severe and because so many of them are paralyzed by the moment. I actually think that the pressure pushing, you know, those otherwise confused electeds who don't know who they're going to piss off by taking this or that action, I think they're actually really subject to pressure. So if you can push your electeds to actually do something meaningful to support whatever mobilizations are happening in your community, I'm less cynical about that as like a necessary tactic right now than I may have been in traditional times. But these are not traditional times, so call your representatives.
All right. Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on, and good luck to all of your future endeavors. And we'll try to
really appreciate the chance.
Yeah, of course. We'll try to help out as much as we can over here.
Yeah,
right.
Happy to update you anytime. Appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Thanks a lot, Chris. Bye.
Take care.
That was Chris Dols of the Federal Unionist Network. You can go to Save Public Services. You can also go to federalunionist.net, but you can also go to gosavepublicservices.com. Leisha Miller said that and we laughed. No, I mean, I think I said that it's also important to do regardless. All right. What's his ad in the chat? That's a man that does not spend time on Twitch, I don't think. All right. Elon Musk is mad because community notes is increasingly being gamed by governments and legacy media. Working to fix this, it should be utterly obvious that Zelensky-controlled poll about his own approval is not credible. If Zelensky was actually loved by the people of Ukraine, he would hold an election. He knows he would lose in a landslide, despite having seized control of all the Ukrainian media, so he canceled the election. In reality, he's despised by the people of Ukraine, which is why he has refused to hold an election. He's mad that community notes end up undermining his position, so he's probably going to try and delete it. Elon Musk is also extensively having a crash out on the timeline once again, having another Thailand cave diver moment. Here it is. This is Andreas Mogensen criticizing Elon Musk by saying, "What a lie. Projection. Replace the names law." I know I'm going to get to the grime stuff too. Don't worry. Hold on. Here he is actively yelling at an astronaut. Elon Musk famously, alongside Donald Trump, said, he's going to help rescue these astronauts. They were left up there for political reasons. Andreas Mogensen says, "What a lie." And from someone who complains about the lack of honesty from mainstream media. To which he responded with, "You are fully R-worded." SpaceX, to be fair, he can say it. He is neurodivergent. Okay. It's his word. SpaceX could have brought them back several months ago. This is a 50-year-old man, by the way. I think if you're 50 years old and you say this word in public, you should probably get a timeout. You know what I mean? Just a timeout. Like all jokes aside. If you are 50 fucking years old and you're saying this word, come on. Like, what are we doing here? Jesus Christ. Anyway, SpaceX could have brought them back several months ago. I offered this directly to the Biden administration and they refused. Return was pushed back for political reasons. Idiot. Elon, I have long admired you and what you have accomplished, especially at SpaceX and Tesla. You know as well as I do that Butch and Suni are returning with Crew 9, as has been the plan since last September. Even now, you are not sending up a rescue ship to bring them home. They are returning on the Dragon capsule that has been on the ISS since last September. Just to make this clear, the Musk lie about the astronauts isn't SpaceX offered a mission. The lie is that NASA, even Biden didn't want SpaceX to bring the astronauts home because he know like Elon, even though that's exactly what NASA did during Biden, which off rip tells you how absurd this dumbass lie is. Why would NASA pay for a whole new crew, Dragon mission, $200 million plus to interrupt the ISS schedule to bring astronauts back a few months earlier for no reason, when they could just leave them on the ISS for free, put them to work on the station, and bring them back on the next scheduled Dragon, which is what they decided. Answer that question or shut the fuck up. This wasn't done because of politics. You are the liar, Elon Musk replies, and the people you cite were not party to the discussions. Liar. Hey, I think you forgot to read the part where I said, answer that question or shut the fuck up. You can't get owned by a dude who's literally paying for Twitter Blue and wears a bow tie on your own platform that you purchased, man. That is crazy. How is that even, like, you're getting destroyed by a child who paid for a blue check mark to post on your own platform. Oh my God. I can't tell if this is him drunk on power or high on ketamine. It's just so strange that Elon Musk says things about people and then those people come out and they're like, you're wrong. You're lying about this. Shut the fuck up. And he goes, you're R-worded. I owned you. Anyway, also, what is this? Canadian Rachel Dolezal. Ontario NDP candidate drops out of race after audio clip surfaces where she says, I want to be a black woman. Oh my God. So Trudeau? Yeah, what? It's wrong when NDP does it, but it's fine when Trudeau does it? Okay. I'm thinking this is a case of double standards here. Anyway, also, Elon is definitely doing great. Here he is at CPAC doing Dark MAGA. Dark MAGA. Let's take a look at what he had to say at CPAC.
You know, and have like a sense of humor, you know? So, I mean, sort of the left wanted to make comedy illegal, you know? Yeah. Like you can't...
The left wanted to make comedy illegal. I, on the other hand, am loving the comedy. Ha, Dark MAGA. Yeah. Everyone loves to talk about how you want to make comedy legal again until somebody posts that picture of the revolver pointing directly at Elon Musk as he's exiting a New York City high rise. And then all of a sudden, comedy is illegal now. You know? What happened?
Can't make fun of anything. So then it was like, comedy sucks. It's like, nothing's funny. You can't make fun of
comedy sucks. Oh, God, I hate him. I hate him so much. I can't stand it. I can't stand this motherfucker, bro. Doors open. Okay.
Anything. It's like, legalize comedy. Yeah. Legalize comedy.
And we've shifted the entire culture and just,
you know.
Anyway, but it doesn't end there. Here is Grimes, whose tweets you might not be able to see any longer. Grimes says, please respond about our child's medical crisis. I'm sorry to do this publicly, but it is no longer acceptable to ignore the situation. This requires immediate attention. If you don't want to talk to me, can you please designate or hire someone who can so that we can move forward on solving this? This is urgent, Elon. I'm not giving any details, but he won't respond to texts, calls, or emails, and has skipped every meeting, and our child will suffer lifelong impairment if he doesn't respond ASAP. So I need him to fucking respond. If I have to apply public pressure, then I guess that's where we're at. And while this is this is Grimes' last resort here, Elon Musk has done this instead. Made those posts unavailable, it seems, lowering her visibility. Isn't that cool? They get to do whatever the fuck they want, dude. It's awesome. Billionaires. Have you taken him to Pete's doctor and then gotten a second opinion? I usually mix opinions with general physicians. The other tweets that she posted are not visible, just the yes. How the hell is this not the case for full custody? I'll tell you how. Elon Musk is rich, and when you're rich, they let you do whatever the fuck you want. Quite literally, okay? When you are rich, you can do whatever you want. You can mistreat your little human shield to any degree that you want to, and there's no one that can say anything about it or do anything about it. And the mother can't even complain about it privately or get any legal recourse here. And she can't even complain about it publicly because guess what? Elon will limit your visibility. Is this even the human shield one? Yes, this is the human shield one. Elon is completely shadow banned Grimes. I don't know if this is correct. I can still find her I can still find her tweets, just not all of them. Oh, it now says the post was deleted by the post author. Before it said the visibility was limited somehow. They have 3 children together? Yes. I'm suspecting that Elon Musk has only done in vitro fertilization because he has 13 children, and I think all 13 were assigned male at birth. Vivian is trans, so I suspect no, 2 of them weren't per Evan. Okay, with the exception of maybe like the first 2, I don't know. Wait, what? 2 of them are cis girls? 2 of them are surrogates, though. Grimes was only pregnant once. After Mitch McConnell retires, you're retiring next, right? Yeah, I'm retiring. Community No says he has 2 daughters. No, Exa and Azura are AFAB, I'm pretty sure. Okay. Also, what the fuck is Techno Machinus? I mean, actually, what the fuck is Techno Machinus? That should be illegal, dude. Like, that's one of those things where you're like, this is what I want to name my child. And then when you're trying to type it in, on Mechanicus, sorry, Techno Mechanicus, when you try to type that in, the system goes and it automatically alerts Child Protective Services and they just take the custody away. No disrespect to Grimes, or automatically give the custody to Grimes, I guess. Actually, I shouldn't even say that. I feel like Grimes would totally be down with Techno Mechanicus. XAEAX2. Exa Dark Side Rail. Techno Mechanicus.
This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy. Chainsaw. Something. I am become meme. Yeah, pretty much.
Dude, what is happening, man? Does nobody see what I'm seeing? Like, when I see this kind of shit, I'm like, dude, this is like, I'm trying so hard not to be ableist. And you know, I got a little bit of that tism in me too. Okay. 124, but goddamn, things could be so much fucking worse. Okay. Holy shit, dude. This guy literally is running around and undermining autism representation in spectacular ways, dude. Holy fuck.
Damn, this guy's good.